I'm sitting here debating my problem with myself. I'm divorced due to a cheating wife. I've been divorced for almost 8 months now. I have no kids and no immediate family around. I'm telling you this because I want another man's wife. I don't know if it's love, need, lust, infatuation, or just plain wanting her. I do know that revenge is part of it. See, I don't know her that well. I see her often when I go to lunch. She works in the same building as I do. I've been trying to find out as much information on her as possible. I'm going to have her, but my problem is, then what? It's a horrible feeling, wanting someone so bad that I'd be willing to take her by force if necessary. So far, I found out she's around 28 years old, a nice petite build. She's married to a loser as far as I can tell. She has no children and is somewhat of a flirt. Her husband's a loser because he doesn't know what he has and is willing to take a chance on losing her. The worst thing about him is he broke up my marriage. He screwed my wife, and now I'll make him pay by doing his wife. I figure if I take her and screw her, I'll be doing her a favor. In case you haven't figured it out, I'm a nutcase, a bona fide son of a bitch. I've been this way ever since I caught my wife cheating on me. I came home from work early one day and just walked into my house. I really wasn't paying much attention to anything and just walked into my bedroom to change my clothes. There in the middle of the bed lay my wife with another man. She saw me and screamed, and the sorry scumsucker thought he was doing a good job. I grabbed him by the shoulders and pulled him off my cheating wife. As I threw him to the floor and started beating the living crap out of him, my crazy wife just kept screaming. I beat that pig pretty good. As he was starting to get up, I dragged him to the door and threw him naked right out into the street. I threw his wallet and car keys onto the grass, but not his clothes. He got up, staggered to his car a bloody mess, and drove away. I never saw or heard from him again until one day fate just intervened. I then walked back into the bedroom where my sorry excuse for a wife was getting dressed quickly. She was crying, James. It's not what it looked like. Please, let's talk about it. We can work this out. Not what it looked like, I said. It looked like you were screwing that a hole in our bed. Were you screwing him or not? Please, James, let me explain, I interrupted her. Either you were screwing him or you weren't. Which is it? It isn't that hard of a question. Just answer it. I waited a few seconds and said, since you're having such a hard time with that one question, our talk is over. I'm going out to have dinner. You have 1 hour to get whatever you want and get the hell out of my life. If you're still here when I get back, I'm going to beat the living shit out of you and then throw your sorry ass out. That's it. You have 1 hour. That's the end of this conversation. Then I walked out the door. I waited 2 hours before going back. I was hoping she would be gone. You see, I'm a man of my word, and I would have beat the hell out of her, even though she's a woman and my wife. When I got back home, she was gone, and most of her personal stuff was gone too. She left me a note. I wasn't even going to read it, but then thought, maybe I should, dearest James. I made a mistake, a really big mistake. Carl doesn't mean anything to me. He was an old school friend that I ran into. We were lovers back in school. You knew I had a lover before we got married. It was Carl, my first love. Things just happened, and old memories never die. I ran into Carl at the mall. It was so good to see him again, just as an old friend. Well, he started flirting with me, and I started remembering old times. He asked me where I lived, and we came to the house. I should have known better, but I made a mistake. When we got into the house, I showed him around. When we got to the bedroom, he took me into his arms and kissed me. It just seemed like old times. Then it happened. We started necking like we used to, and then he took me. God, I wish it never happened, but it did. I'm so sorry for hurting you. Please reconsider taking me back. I promise to be a good wife and never to cheat again. I really do love you, James. Love always, Lisa. The note just hurt me worse. Now the prick had a name. I loved my wife, but I'm one of the nutcases out there that believes love can be lost. In my case, it was totally gone. It was replaced with revenge. Revenge isn't necessarily something you want, it's something you just have to do. I would get mine. I called off work the next day, seeing I had to change our check-in and savings accounts. I called most of the credit card companies and canceled them. I kept 2 that were in my name only for any expenses I might incur. I'm a hard-nosed bastard and not afraid to admit it. That's just the way it is. Lisa's dad called and asked what the problem was between me and Lisa. I got pissed and said, "What the hell is the matter with you? Don't tell me you didn't have the balls to ask your own daughter." "Well, George, I caught your precious bitch of a daughter screwing one of her friends in our bed. I'm not the forgiving kind and threw her out. She had a chance to take whatever she wanted, and I'm not giving her another damn dime. If she wants to go to court and bring out the dirty laundry, that's fine with me. Otherwise, leave me alone." Then I just hung up the phone. 2 days later, Karen, who is Lisa's younger sister, called me and asked if I would talk to her for a few minutes. I told her, "Go ahead and talk, I'm listening." She started out saying how Lisa was so sorry until I cut her off. "I don't care how sorry Lisa is. Do you have anything else to say? If you say the name Lisa again, I'll hang up. Your bitch of a sister doesn't exist in my life anymore." Karen asked if there were any more personal items that belonged to her sister left at the house. I just told her that her sister had an hour to take all she wanted with her. If she forgot something, then that was too damn bad. Karen mentioned a few items. I was starting to get pissed again, so I responded in the only way I knew. "Karen, I'll tell you what. You come over here and screw me on my bed, and I'll let you take whatever else you want for your precious sister." She screamed back, "You sorry son of a bitch! How dare you talk to me like that? Wait until I tell my husband and you can deal with him. Does that mean I'm not going to get a chance to screw you? I always thought you'd be a pretty good lay. Well, then send that sorry excuse for a husband over here. Maybe I'll just screw him." I wasn't afraid of the chicken shit. He was just a yes person to his wife. I had no doubts I'd never see him at my door. I could hear someone in the background on the phone. I knew it was Lisa. Karen must have handed her the phone. All I heard was, "James, you son of a bitch." Then I just hung up the phone. I contacted my lawyer and had him fill out the necessary papers, giving Lisa nothing. We were renting the house. We each had our own car. Other than that, I just kept the savings accounts. Lisa never fought the divorce. I let it be known that I would talk to no one in the family except Karen, and that was only if she met my demands. Damn, I was a hard ass. Karen was a looker. She was a little better-looking gal than her sister Lisa. Both were good-looking women, but Karen was a few years younger. I was getting ready to move out of the house, and the divorce was already final. I called Karen on the phone and asked if she wanted to get a few personal items of her sister's that I was moving to an apartment and didn't want to haul her shit around. If she didn't come and get it, I would just throw it all out. She quickly said yes. She would come and get the items that evening. I told her to either come alone or bring that sorry excuse for a husband with her. Under no circumstances was Lisa to be at my door. When Karen arrived at my door that evening, she was alone. I asked about her husband, but she said he was busy. I knew the truth was that he was afraid, and she knew I was going to screw her when she came into the house. We walked into the bedroom where I had her sister's stuff packed. She reached down for one of the boxes when I said, "Hold it. You haven't paid for it yet." She looked at me and said, "You can't be serious. I'm not going to make love to you." I laughed. "No, not love, just plain sex. You've been thinking about this for a long time." I said, "Give it up, Karen. You're not fooling anyone. There's only you and me here." Then I kissed her. "Screw you. You're just like your sister. I took some of my revenge out on her, but damn, it felt good." I walked over and picked up a couple of her sister's boxes of stuff and headed out to her car. When I came back in, she started yelling at me. "You son of a bitch. You just used me for your pleasure. How can you be so cold, so callous? What has happened to you? Where is the fun, loving James that was once here? He died. Your sister killed him. She did to me what I just did to your husband. I made him a cuck, a chicken. You got what you wanted, just like your sister. Now take her stuff and get the hell out of my house. Don't forget to tell your husband when you get home. He is probably chicken enough to stay with you. By the way, I don't want any more of you. I can't stand a cheating wife. You have all your sister's stuff, so there should be no reason for you to come back." She called me a scum, grabbed the last box of stuff, and left my house. She was a damn good lay, but I knew that I just wanted her for revenge on her sister. Screwing can never take the place of love, it just can't. I'm not saying screwing is bad. I'm saying it can't be put in the same category as love. It seems to build up in you. It's all you think about: revenge, get even, make the perpetrators pay for their act. That was my goal. I knew it wouldn't solve my problems. I knew it, but it was just something I had to do. Right or wrong, I was going to extract my revenge. Her name was Beth, the good-looking petite gal I saw every day. Sometimes you get an urge, a feeling you can't get rid of. That's what I felt when I saw this gal almost every day. She would come into the restaurant with her girlfriends. They would all laugh and seem to enjoy their lives. One of the gals she ate lunch with was Sarah. I'd known her for years. We were friends, but not real close. Kind of, "Hi, Sarah, how are you today?" type friends. Sarah knew about my divorce. In a small community, almost everyone you know has heard the rumors. One day when Sarah came into the restaurant alone at lunchtime, I asked her to join me for lunch. I wanted to talk to her. She sat down, a little suspicious. I told her it was just for lunch, that I got tired of always eating alone. We talked about her family and how the kids were. She told me about her husband's promotion and about things in general. She asked me about my life and how things were since the divorce. Everyone knew Lisa cheated on me, but no one knew with whom. If anyone ever had the balls to ask, I simply told them I didn't know who it was, and it really didn't make any difference. I asked Sarah about the new girl in their office. She told me her name was Beth. She and her husband Tom had moved here about a year ago. When she said the name Tom, it just didn't sit right. Sarah looked at me and said, "James, Beth is a happily married woman. You're not going to make a play on her, are you?" Everyone knew about my bad personality since the divorce. I told Sarah that I thought Beth was a fine-looking woman and just wondered who she was. She gave me more information on Tom, and then I had to find out if he was who I thought he was. If he was, there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to screw Beth. I hated being like this, but I couldn't help it. One day at lunchtime, I was in a corner booth with a friend of mine having lunch. He had never asked me much about my personal life. He knew better, so we got along just fine. As we were eating, in came Beth and her husband. It was the son of a bitch that I caught screwing my wife. Damn, damn, damn. I wanted to go over and punch his lights out again, but I kept my cool. He never recognized me, seeing he only saw me for a few seconds while I beat the shit out of him. But unfortunately, I recognized him and set out to screw his wife. One day, when Beth was alone at the restaurant, I started talking to her. I introduced myself and mentioned that I was friends with Sarah. I wanted to put Beth at ease. She smiled and introduced herself. I asked her if she wanted to share a table. She looked a little nervous until I told her she would have to pay for her own lunch. That made her laugh. As we sat down, she just talked up a storm, telling me about herself and indicating that her husband Tom had transferred here a little over a year ago. She stated that they had kind of a rocky start here, that her husband was jumped by two men and they had stolen everything he owned. He had to drive to the emergency room and had stitches above his left eye. She said he was a mess when he got home. She mentioned he filed a police report but didn't have a good enough description, and the police never caught the culprits. That explained why he never turned me in. After lunch, I told her it was so nice to meet her and that any time she wanted to share a table, it was fine with me. Now, I had a real problem. I liked Beth. I really liked her. I needed my revenge and at the same time did not want to hurt Beth. What to do? What to do? I would have to think on this. I saw her almost every day, most of the time with the other girls from her office. She always looked over at me and smiled. One day in passing, I told her I was going to start lunch an hour later, so I probably wouldn't have a chance to eat lunch with her again. But lo and behold, the next day she took her lunch an hour later and was alone. She came to my table and asked to join me. Of course, I said yes, and we started having lunch almost every day together. We started to become good friends, and I was starting to have strong feelings for her. One day I got up and said to her that I thought she was one of the most beautiful, nicest women I'd ever met. If she wasn't married, I would ask her out. She acted nervous and said, "But I am married, James. I might not have the best marriage, but I won't ever cheat on my husband." I couldn't. It's just not right. I had to ask her about that last statement. What is wrong with your marriage? She had tears in her eyes and said she thought her husband had been cheating on her, but she wasn't sure. I took her hand and just held it for a minute. She was shaken as I did my best to calm her down. I was wondering what kind of an a-hole would give up a wonderful woman like this to just screw around. What an idiot. Then I began to wonder if he was back with Lisa again. I looked at Beth and told her I had something very important to talk to her about, but I couldn't do it there, and asked if she would meet me after work. I needed her to trust me enough to go to my apartment where we could talk very privately. James, I can't go to your apartment. What would that look like? What would people think? I just thought about Lisa for a second. Why couldn't she have been like this? Beth, it is extremely important that I talk to you. I care for you too much not to tell you what I know. Please meet with me. I think I trust you, James. I do like you, but don't know you well enough to be alone in an apartment with you. Can we meet here and either talk in the car or in a restaurant? Okay, Beth, let's meet here after work. I'll even buy your dinner. She smiled at me and said, Boy, it must be important if you're willing to buy dinner. As she laughed, I had to get my thoughts in order. What would I say? How would I say it? I didn't want to take the chance of alienating Beth. I wanted her for my revenge, but now I also wanted her for me. Yes, old hard-nosed son of a bitch, James was falling for another man's wife. Damn it. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. I was just supposed to take her in front of her husband and then laugh at him. Why did it have to be her? Damn it. We met for dinner. She told me she had talked to Sarah and was told about my divorce and how my wife was found by me having sex with another man. She said that it must have been awful seeing this in my own home. She stated how sorry she felt for me. She was so afraid of finding out the same kind of information on her husband. She didn't know how she would handle it if it happened to her. Beth, there are a few things I must tell you about me. I know you're married, but I'm falling in love with you. Please, James, don't say any more. I'm a married woman. Beth, it is imperative I tell you these things. I must tell you, and you have to listen, please. As I said, I'm falling in love with you. My problem is I'm a hard-nosed scumsucker. Finding my wife and her lover together made me that way. I know you've heard people talk and say what a mean scumsucker I've become. I can't help it. I wish I could. I'm always walking around with a chip on my shoulder. My wife put that chip there, along with her lover. My plan was revenge. I was going to find her lover's wife and screw her in front of her husband. Yes, the son of a bitch was married too. Beth interrupted me. Please, James, you don't need to tell me this. It's so personal, and I know it hurts for you to talk about it. I hear it in your voice. Let me continue, please, Beth. As I said, I was going to get revenge on my wife's lover and screw his wife in front of him. Now I have a big, big problem. The woman whom I was going to take, the woman I've fallen in love with. Beth put her hands over her face in shock. She knew the man was her husband, and the woman I fell in love with was her. Beth had tears rolling down her face. My God, it's so hard to believe. How do you know? How can you be so sure? You were going to assault me for revenge against my husband? She was crying harder. I wanted to put my arms around her to comfort her, but she stopped me. Please don't touch me right now, she said. I need a moment to think. Beth, a year ago, I found the man in my bedroom. I beat the shit out of him and threw him out of my house without any clothes. All I knew was that his name was Tom. I then pulled out the note from my pocket that Lisa had left me. For some strange reason, I had kept it. I handed it to Beth to read. She cried as she read it. I watched you for the last 6 months coming down to the restaurant to eat lunch. Day by day, I waited to see you. You were the only bright spot in my life, and I didn't even know you, but I was slowly falling for you. I didn't know at the time you were married. I never approached you because I had temper problems and was still planning my revenge. Then one day I asked Sarah about you. She told me you were married, and I felt bad. I really wanted to get to know you better, but I didn't want to ruin your marriage. Then another day your husband met you for lunch. That was when I knew who he was. I did everything in my power not to beat the shit out of him again. If you had been any other woman, I would have taken you in front of him by now, just for the revenge. Beth was crying with her hands folded in front of her. I continued. I was fallen in love with you and couldn't assault the woman I love. Now I'm in deep turmoil. I want to hurt your husband and not hurt you. I want to make love to you. It's been a long time since I made love. The last year has all been about revenge. I believe that your husband is back with Lisa since they were childhood sweethearts and she is now divorced. How do you feel about me, Beth? I need to know so I know what to do. I promise, regardless of your feelings for me, I will not hurt you. I just couldn't do it. Now I know that I'm a prick, a scumsucker, and a vengeful person. I'm hard-nosed as hell, but there is another side of me, one that hasn't seen the light of day for a year now. I want to show you that person. Please give me a chance to show you that side of me. I could be the kinder, gentler person for the right woman. For some reason, deep inside of me, I know you are that woman. There is a nice guy who wants to get out. Revenge is blocking his way. Help me, Beth. Help me get my revenge on your husband. Then if you want, we could build a real loving life together. My God, James, so much at once. My mind is swimming with questions, and right now, I don't have any answers. I'm not even sure I know my feelings for you, my husband, or even for myself. I need to think about all you've told me before I can give you any kind of answers. Please, please understand that I'm not playing you or putting you off. I want to help you. You seem to be hurting so much inside, but I don't know. I just don't know. After a somewhat upsetting dinner, I walked Beth to her car. I told her I was sorry if I had upset her, but I thought she should know the truth. I would do whatever I could to work with her to solve both of our problems. This might have not been the right time to tell her of my growing feelings toward her, but I would explode if I didn't vent them to her. I just wanted her to know. She did let me give her a light hug before she left. So far, I hadn't solved any problems. I think I just made everything worse. Maybe telling her about her husband's past wasn't the right thing to do. I have no idea what her thoughts were. I just hope everything turned out good for her. The next day, I couldn't wait to see her at lunch. I had to know her feelings and thoughts. I went to the restaurant where we usually ate. I waited for her, but she never showed up. My God, what did I do? Did she have it out with her husband? Did he try to hurt her? If he did, I'd kill the son of a bitch. Maybe she went the other way and just told him about me and who I was. God, her not showing up had me worried. I didn't know if I should try calling her house or just wait one more day. I had a hard time finishing my workday. I did my best to get my mind off Beth. When I got home, my phone rang. It was Beth. She sounded distraught. James, I have to see you. I know I said I shouldn't come to your place, but things have changed. I want to make that. I have to see you tonight. Can I stop by, please? My God, Beth, I was so worried about you. I had such a hard time today after not seeing you at lunch. Did that scumsucker hurt you? If he did, I'll kill the son of a bitch. Yes, come over right now. I'll be here waiting for you. As I hung up the phone, the doorbell rang. Who could that be, I wondered. I opened the door, and there stood Beth, grinning at me. I followed you home, but needed to know if you were just blowing smoke or really wanting to help me. When you answered the phone the way you did, I knew you were being honest with me. I'm sorry for the little test, but I had to be sure. God, I was so glad to see her. I gave her a big hug, and she felt so good. Why didn't you go to work today? I asked. Last night I spent the whole evening trying to get my mind straight. Tom, my husband, came home late. He used his usual excuse of working late. I tried to be a little lovey-dovey with him, but he wanted no part of it. He said he was tired and was going to bed. I thought to myself, if a man refused to make love with a woman like Beth, either he had just gotten his rocks off or was brain dead. Beth said, I waited for Tom to leave for work this morning, and then I thought I would do some detective work. I started going through the computer files, looking for hidden files or letters that didn't belong. I work on the computer at my job, so I know my way around them pretty good. Because of the information you gave me, I was able to trace a few files. Here's what I found. She handed me all kinds of information. She said she would explain it to me so I wouldn't have to read all the detailed information. She looked at me and said, First, I have to tell you, I don't love Tom anymore. After all the information I found out about him, I think I despise him. I don't like being used, and that's one of my possible problems with you. I grabbed her hands and held them. Then she said, I'm not sure how I feel about you. One side of me really cares for you, but the other side of me says watch it. He just wants to use you for his revenge and then drop you like a hot potato. So for now, I want to keep our relationship on a wait-and-see mode. If you care for me like you say, you will wait till our lives become clearer. Then we can proceed from there. What do you say? I smiled at her and said, that's all I ask for, Beth, a chance to prove myself. I really do care for you, and if I start moving too fast, please just tell me to slow down. Can we seal our deal with a kiss before we get started on your detective work? She smiled at me with a big silly grin and said, no, now let's get started. My husband applied for this job here. He wasn't just transferred like he told me. He asked to be transferred. That was his first lie. This was his old hometown where he grew up. I didn't think much about it at the time. I just thought that he was like a lot of people and just wanted to move back to their old stomping ground. I loved him, so I agreed to the move. He went to his class reunion about 14 months ago. Did your ex-wife go to it? And if she did you go also? I had a family engagement at the time. It was my mom's birthday, so I went there instead. He told me the old class reunions are usually boring anyway. Come to think of it, my wife did have a class reunion. I had an out-of-town business trip that weekend. I asked her if she wanted to go with me, but she said she would like to go see all her old friends. I never thought anything about it till now. Damn, you were a pretty good private investigator. Here's a copy of some of the emails between them just before the reunion. Not love letters, but they definitely were expecting to see each other. Now, here are a couple of emails after the reunion. As you can see, or at least read, when you caught them making love around 4 months later, it wasn't their first time meeting up and making love. They had been doing it for months already. I got pissed, telling me, oh, honey, it's not what you think, it just happened. I thought my revenge against her was over since we weren't married anymore, that I was only going to get revenge on Tom. But now things had changed. Beth could see the hurt and meanness in my eyes. I told Beth that I wasn't mad at her at all, but being made a cuck by my ex-wife really pissed me off. Then I looked over at Beth and said, I really need to be kissed right now to calm me down, or I'm going to have to run my fist through the wall. I stood up and walked toward the wall. Stop, you idiot! I'll kiss you! I'll kiss you! She screamed. She got up and came up to me. She put her arms around me and kissed me really gently for a few seconds. When our lips separated, I looked into her eyes and slowly pressed my lips to hers again with a little more feeling. As we separated the second time, she said, that's enough, Tiger. I'm only human, too. As we sat back down, I thanked her. She looked at me and said, my pleasure, and I really mean pleasure. Now let's get back to work. I can't be here all night. We both laughed as we thought the same thing. Here are copies of my husband's cell phone records for the past year or so. As you can see, this number is called almost daily. I called the phone company, and it belongs to Elisa Thompson. That's my wife's maiden name. I didn't even know she took it back. Also, I never knew she had a cell phone. When was it purchased? According to my husband's phone records to that number, it must have been about a month before he was beaten up by a couple of thugs named James. She was smiling. That means she had the phone before you caught them. That could explain why they got away with it for so long, and also why she didn't fight for more money during the divorce. Some of this might have come out and wouldn't have helped her case. What about you, Beth? Where do you stand in all this? For me right now it's mostly pride, but you're still married to the scumsucker. What do you want us to do? She looked at me, knowing I said the word us instead of you. I want to take him for everything we have. I want to make him sorry he ever did this to me. I want to embarrass him in public. How do I do all this without becoming a whore or a bitch? I want to keep my pride, and hopefully you, James. Do you think you can live in the same house for a couple of weeks without giving anything away? No problem. I just don't want to make love to him. Other than that, I don't have any problem making a dinner or two. If he continues to see his girlfriend regularly, I should be all right. Well, Beth, to begin with, you need to go shopping. We can go during lunch if you like. Make sure you use joint credit cards in both your names. We don't want you to get in trouble using cards in his name only. Buy yourself everything you always wanted. Run up as much debt as you can. Take some cash advances and put the money in a savings account or buy bonds or stock. James, aren't you a stockbroker? Why aren't you doing the investing for me? I didn't want you to have any doubts about me. I really care for you and want you to trust me. I can invest the money for you if you like. I just want you to know that I don't want any of it. I'm here to help you. If you decide to make love to me at some point, that will be the revenge for me. We figured that the credit cards were going to be our starting point. As she got up to leave, I asked her, "Do I get any more kisses tonight?" She put her arms around me and opened her mouth slightly and kissed me. I was feeling like a teenager. Then she pulled away, saying, "Damn, you're good. See you at lunch tomorrow." She smiled and got into her car. The next day, instead of eating lunch, we went to a couple of banks. Using her joint credit cards, she took thousands of dollars as cash advances. That would give her a month to make all her transfers before the credit card bills came due. She was smart. She didn't max out any cards just in case he was to use any of them. She did find out he was charging a motel room twice a week on one of the cards. We did the bank thing for 3 days using 7 different charge cards. I took the checks and invested all the money for her. I used tax-free government bonds and other accounts that would be hard to get the money out of. Beth had me put the accounts in my name so her husband wouldn't be able to get any of the money. I did make her a co-signer of the accounts so I couldn't take any money without her signature. The co-signer was my idea. I wanted her to feel safe about the investments and about me. I started to check out the latest on my ex. I couldn't find much. I gave Beth whatever information I could about her, and she ran with it. She said that Lisa was now working for the same company as her husband. Lisa was one of the company's secretaries. Beth used her connections and found out where they spent their time when not at work. They were getting sloppy. Since they had been cheating for so long, they didn't think anyone noticed. Beth had her girlfriend start taking pictures and notes on whatever was happening. I found out everyone loved Beth. All the other secretaries respected her. Whenever they had a computer problem, they called her. I found out she was literally a computer geek without the geek look. She went from office to office helping all the secretaries with their computer problems. They never felt belittled or were made fun of because Beth would always take the time to explain the procedures to them. They all felt protective of her. I didn't know about my revenge. How was I going to do it? I couldn't assault Beth, not now that she was the only good thing in my life. My ex-wife was out of my life, but I wouldn't mind getting a little revenge on her since this was a long-running affair before our divorce. But how, and what could I do without Beth's help? I wasn't sure I could pull it off. Beth had told me she couldn't just make love to me right now. If she did, she wouldn't be any better than my cheating wife or her husband. She did care for me, but was still a married woman. I needed a plan. What to do. As I told you, I was a bad bastard and had been for a year. I worked out and kept myself in good physical shape. I had to. I've been around a lot of friends that were of a questionable nature. To be frank about them, they were pimps and hookers. I was their investment broker. Together, we made a lot of money. They made the bucks, and I invested it for them. Yes, I did make it with a few of the hookers. Believe it or not, some of them were really nice people. Of course, others weren't so nice. Luckily, I knew which were which. They really were good to have as friends. They brought a lot of business my way just because I didn't belittle them. I might not have agreed with their lifestyle, but they were people too. I gave one of my pimp friends a call and asked him for a favor. When I got done explaining it to him, he laughed out loud and said, "Man, you are one bad scum sucker. You know it's going to cost you. No freebies in this world." I told him, "No problem, Big Louie, as long as it's done right. There might even be a bonus in it for you. Good deal." My plan was finally starting to come together. Beth and I got together one evening to plan our operation. She was worried that I might still want to take her in public, and it was against everything she believed in. She really was a special woman of good character. I promised her, with God as my witness, that I would never hurt or embarrass her in any way. She just gave me her patented smile that could melt ice and said, "I think I'm falling for you big time. Just thought you should know." I asked her to take the next couple of days off as vacation, sick days, or leave. It didn't make any difference except we only had a couple of days to set up this sting operation. It had to work like clockwork to succeed. Well, what's the plan, James? How are you going to get revenge and not use me? What do you need me to do? First, stop asking so many questions. I smiled at her. Now, next Wednesday, you say they have room 203 booked. Is that correct? Yes, they have it reserved until 10 in the evening. They seem to always reserve the same room and always for about 5 hours. Not the best of motels, but they need to rent it by the hour. Funny, the way Tom made love to me, he could have rented it for 15 minutes and saved a lot of money. Okay, now tomorrow I'm going to reserve the same room for Wednesday morning. I'm going to be setting up a remote-operated VCR. While I'm doing that, you need to go see my lawyer, Sally Hayes. She's the best damn take-no-prisoners lawyer out there. Here's what you want written up. It's going to be your divorce decree, stating that you want a divorce under these circumstances. Then Wednesday night you'll have to get Tom's signature on it. How do you know he'll sign it, James? What if he says no? What will I do? Don't worry, Beth. I'm almost positive he'll sign it. The consequences are too great. Do you want me to tell you the whole plan, or do you want to wait and be surprised? My God, James, you're making me a nervous wreck. I don't think I could wait to find out anything. You seem so excited, and it's rubbing off on me. You're so very special to me that I want you as much as this revenge. We will get the revenge. It's for both of us. Then I just hope you feel the same about me as I do about you. Then my revenge will be complete. Are we going to completely ruin their lives, James? I don't feel real good about that. I just kind of want to get even. We're going to put their lives in turmoil, but their lives will go on unless they are foolish enough not to sign your divorce papers. Okay, sweetheart, here's the plan. They usually meet between 5 and 6. Tom usually gets there about a half hour before Lisa. We are going to do a job on him. I have my friend Big Louie stopping by to pay Tom a visit. He will have Sally and Sue with him. They are hookers who are not working at the present due to a bad case of syphilis. I'm paying them to have unprotected sex with Tom, both of them. Big Louie is there to make sure he takes care of his women. The last thing that Tom would want to do is cross Big Louie. How do you know these people, James? They're my clients. They bring in a lot of money and I help them invest it. Of course, when Lisa shows up, she can have a choice, screw her lover Tom, or Big Louie will get his rocks off. Now, during all these sex acts, you and I will be sitting in the van running the remote control. Then, when the time is right, you will walk in, catch them in the act, and ask for a divorce. Then you will walk over to the closet and give Tom a choice sign the divorce papers. Or you will leave with the tape, and you will send a copy to his employers and to the company's home office. The choice is his. Then, after his choice is made, you come back to the van. Big Louie will be there to protect you from any harm. He will not leave until after you go. Well, what do you think, Beth? Is it a go? She smiled at me and said, "You're doing this more for me than for yourself, aren't you?" God, you know, there is another side of you, and I'm beginning to like it very much. It's a go. Over the next couple of days, we set everything up. Beth saw Sally Hayes, our lawyer, who said she wanted to be there herself to serve Tom with the divorce papers. There was no doubt she would have his signature on the legal document. She was the most well-known divorce lawyer in the state. Sally said that this was such a cool plan and that we have sent her a lot of business over the years. She was a good friend and just wanted to be in on the sting. Big Louie was ready. We paid him in advance and told him he'd get an extra $500 if all went well. He just smiled and said, "No problem." I went over to the motel and rented the room for the afternoon on Wednesday. The desk clerk said I had to be out by 4:00 p.m. because this room was already rented. I met up with Beth and we went to a really nice restaurant to have lunch. Lo and behold, there was my ex-sister-in-law having lunch with some guy who wasn't her husband. I told Beth who it was, and she asked if it would hurt our plans any. I told her that the man with Karen was not her husband, and seeing she didn't know Beth, we could enjoy our lunch. When Karen saw me, she was horrified, caught in the act, so to speak. I could see she was extremely nervous and was wondering who I was with. Beth looked great. Beth caught on real quick. She moved into the seat next to me instead of across from me. She then turned my face toward her and kissed me. She put everything into that kiss. Not only was Karen watching, but so was everyone who could see us. Beth pulled back and smiled, saying, "Think that got anyone's attention?" Then she kissed me again. She stopped when the waiter was making some strange noises. I looked at the waiter and said, "She is one beautiful woman, isn't she?" He replied, "Yes, she is, sir." "She belongs to me, don't you, sweetheart?" I looked at her. "Only you, baby. I belong only to you," she smiled. God, I hoped it was true, but I knew she was putting on the show so my ex-sister-in-law would have something to say to Lisa. Karen never did come over to see us. Geez, I wonder why. Beth and I finished up our lunch and then headed out the door. We went to the electronics store and picked up the equipment we needed. As we were checking out, she said the kiss in the restaurant was for real. She said she meant it, even though she did do it to spite my ex-sister-in-law. Wednesday morning came. Beth and I were both on edge. Any sting operation puts the nerves on edge. Every detail had to be timed and done right. Not much room for error. Beth met with Sally to make sure the divorce papers were in order. I went to the motel room and set up the video equipment. I parked the rented van just around the side of the building so it wouldn't be conspicuous. That evening I went with Beth to see Big Louie. When he saw Beth, he about shit himself. "Geez, man, who's the baby doll?" he asked. I looked at him and introduced Beth. I know she was nervous, but Big Louie had a tendency to affect people that way. Standing about 66 and weighing in at about 320 pounds, but he was a really smart guy. He had a master's degree in business. His net worth was in the millions. I know because I was his finance broker. He could see she was nervous and told her, "Don't worry, little lady. No one's going to hurt you. James is my friend and I respect the man. I'll see to it you're protected. No one is going to hurt you." She felt a little better and thanked him for his kindness. Lou said he and his girls would show up around 5:15 p.m. He wanted to give Tom a few minutes to get organized. Earlier in the day, Beth applied some of her computer expertise. She sent an email to both Tom and Lisa saying the note was from the other. It read, "Sweetheart, I have a very special treat for you tonight. Please, when you arrive, don't ask any questions. I know you will be surprised, just go along. Also, to make it extra special, let's not communicate the rest of this day. I want this to be a night that you will always remember. Love you, me." At 4:45 p.m., Beth and I got into our van and waited. At exactly 5:00 p.m., Tom arrived and went into the room. We were very nervous. This was a big undertaking for us. At 5:15 p.m., we watched as Big Louie approached the room with Sally and Sue. As they knocked on the door, we turned on our cameras. We didn't want to start the tape until the action got underway. We had 2 cameras running, one from above the lights and the other from inside the smoke alarm. It was unbelievable, the quality of the picture from a pinhole camera. I had to remember to return tomorrow and retrieve my cameras. Beth and I were nervous as hell as Big Louie knocked on the door. As he opened the door, we heard Tom say, "Who are you?" Louie explained, "I was paid to bring 2 of my women to this room for some sexual excitement." Tom said, "There must be some mistake." Then Louie asked, "Do you have a problem having fun with my ladies, buddy? Are you Tom Bennett?" Tom replied he was, but didn't expect company. Louie told him that they were paid in advance to come to that room and have sex with the occupants. Louie told him they weren't a charity and were not returning any money. Then he pushed his way in and told his girls to help Tom off with his clothes. We started the tapes. Tom was nervous, you could see it on the tape. He thought this was the surprise that Lisa had for him since he had gotten the email earlier, so he went along. A little information about Sally and Sue: they really were good-looking women, even though they were hookers. They were good at what they did. Of course, the only problem was at that time they had syphilis, and it could be passed along very easily through sexual contact. These gals had Tom Big Louie just sat back in a big chair and watched. The girls were good. Beth was watching through our remote. She was both sad and glad at the same time. Sad that her husband of 5 years chose to cheat on her, while at the same time glad that her revenge had started. There was a knock on the door, and Big Louie opened it to see Lisa standing there. He told her to come in. She asked what was going on when she saw her boyfriend Tom laying on the bed with a woman. As she entered the room, she didn't know what to think. All she knew was that Tom had sent her an email saying something special was going to happen that night. As she entered the room, Big Louie told her to disrobe. She was scared, looking at this big man telling her what to do. He told her he had no intention of touching her, he was just there to protect his girls. Sue looked at Lisa and told her that they didn't have all night and to hurry and get her clothes off. The cameras were catching everything, the sound and the video. Both Tom and Lisa were in sexual heaven. Sally and Sue got dressed and were leaving. There was a knock on our van door. It was Sally Hayes, our lawyer. She asked how it was going and then glanced at the monitor. Tom was busy with Lisa, the hooker. Sally and Sue were back in their vehicle waiting for Big Louie. They did their job well. Big Louie waited outside the door to protect Beth and Sally in case they needed him. Both Beth and Sally approached the door. Beth was first to enter the room. "You goddamn son of a bitch! You worthless piece of shit! You goddamn cheating bastard!" Beth used every swear word she ever learned. "I want a divorce, and I want it now." Tom and Lisa stopped screwing to see Beth in the doorway yelling at them. They knew they were caught red-handed. There was no way they could explain their way out of this one. Beth continued to speak. "Why, Tom? Why? Wasn't I good enough for you that you hooked up with this whore? I knew you were having an affair. I had hoped you would have gotten it out of your system, but no. You continued and continued it. I've had enough. I want a divorce, and I want it as soon as possible." Then Sally Hayes walked in. "Tom, this is my lawyer, Sally Hayes. She will tell you the terms of the divorce decree. I expect to get the divorce started tonight so I can have you out of my life as soon as possible, and you can have your girlfriend." Both Tom and Lisa got out of the bed and started getting dressed as they heard Beth's voice. They never had time to take a shower, so the venereal disease was probably starting to set in. "I'm Sally Hayes, Beth's lawyer. The terms of the divorce are very simple and very clear. 1. Beth will go home tonight and will have 24 hours to gather whatever belongings she wants. You will not be there tonight. After 24 hours, she will never return to the premises. It's an apartment rental in your name, so you can have it. 2. You will be responsible for all bills due before today's date. That includes all credit cards that are held in your name or held jointly by both of you. Beth will give you all joint cards tonight, and she will never use them again. She will be responsible for any cards in her name only. 3. You each have your own car, and each will be responsible for your own vehicles, insurance and payment, as well as upkeep. 4. Lastly, your savings account with a balance of $56,000 will go to Beth. She will withdraw the money from the account tomorrow. You have a 401k that has over $50,000 in it. Beth has one with $70,000 in it. You will both be able to keep your own 401ks. If you agree to these terms, you will have to sign the decree tonight. It is irrevocable. Neither of you will be able to make any changes after it is signed. Beth has already signed it. Just sign it on the line that says, husband. Sally handed him the document to look over and sign. Lisa sat there and looked on. Tom said, "What if I don't sign it tonight? What are you going to do?" Sally said, "That document you are holding will be voided in 5 minutes when I leave. Then we will go to court and ask for the same benefits, except we will make sure we get half of your 401k also. This is a good deal for you. I would advise you to take it." Beth walked over to the closet, opened it, and pulled out the VCR tape. "This is a tape of tonight's events. It will become part of our divorce case." Tom said, "I'm not that stupid. You can't use that tape. You took it without permission." Sally started laughing. "You really are a dumbass. We won't use it in the divorce, but we will make copies and send it to your company and to your company's home office. I'm sure they don't approve of their married employees having affairs." Tom took a couple of steps toward them when Big Louie re-entered the room. "You weren't going to hurt my friends, were you, Tom?" Tom backed off. "Well, Tom, you now have 3 minutes to make up your mind, and then we will be out of here," Sally stated. Lisa turned to Tom and in almost a whisper said, "Tom, Sally Hayes was my husband's lawyer, and I didn't get a damn dime. She's said to be one of the best in the state. You better take that offer, or you will be up shit creek in a boat without a paddle. Besides, we'll lose our jobs if that tape gets in the wrong hands." Sally looked at Tom. "1 minute, and we are out of here. See you in court." As they turned to leave, Tom yelled, "Wait, I'll sign it, but only if I get the tape." Beth looked at Big Louie and handed him the tape. "After Sally and I walk out of here, you can hand this tape to the prick." She also handed him an envelope with the promised bonus of $500. Sally repeated what she had said earlier. "This document is irrevocable. If you have any questions, you must contact me. You are not to bother Beth in any way, or I will have you arrested and put in jail. If you understand all I have said, then sign the document, and I'll give you a copy along with the tape and joint credit cards. Remember, Beth has 24 hours to take whatever she wants out of the apartment. Your divorce is considered a no-fault divorce and should go through within 2 months." Tom signed the papers and Sally gave him a copy. Then Beth and Sally both walked out the door. Shortly after, we saw Big Louie hand the tape to Tom, and then he walked out and joined his girls. Beth and Sally got back in the van with big grins on their faces. Beth gave me a quick kiss. Everyone seemed so happy until I heard what Sally had to say. "James, until the divorce is final, you cannot see Beth. We can't have anyone seeing the two of you together. As long as you two aren't linked, then everything should go as planned. I know that we are going to face some battles with the credit card money being taken out in the last 2 weeks, but our documents are on our side. Unless someone feels Beth is trying to defraud the banks, that is why I let Tom have his 401k. There is enough money there that the banks can go after Tom if he tries to file bankruptcy. There also is no money out there with Beth's name on it, only the $56,000 she is to take out tomorrow. I suggest you just keep it in the same bank, but only in your name. That will lessen any bank questions." Sally continued, "After the divorce, there should be no more problems, and the two of you can hook up if you choose. That will be up to you. James, you told me that your employer asked you to go to another state and set up a brokerage firm for a couple of months. I would advise you to take it as soon as possible. Beth will be all right. I will be here to keep my eye on her. I hate to say it, but right now you are the biggest problem Beth has. Of course, I can't force you to do anything, but I highly advise it." Beth was crying, so I just held her. I knew what Sally had said was true. I was the only problem right now, the only weak link in the chain. I kissed Beth goodbye and told her to contact me after the divorce. I would wait for her. Sally and Beth got out of the van. Sally drove Beth home so she could get whatever items she wanted. They had picked up a U-Haul earlier in the day so Beth could haul away whatever she wanted. Sally did say I could call her if I needed to talk or wanted to find out anything about Beth. After the girls had left, I checked back on the monitor and noticed that Tom and Lisa had left. I got out and went back into the room and gathered my equipment. I grabbed my extra copy of the tape just in case we needed it for future use. Funny, no one ever questions if there's a second copy. 2 cameras, 2 recording machines. I gathered it all up and headed for home. I was really happy for Beth and sad for me. The next day I went in and talked to my boss. I talked to him about the temporary job. I would be leaving for Chicago on Friday. I just hoped everything worked out for Beth. She truly was a wonderful person. It looked like she got her revenge. I was the only one left out in the cold. It was fun helping out Beth. I really did love her. When I arrived in Chicago, I threw myself into my work. We were starting a new brokerage firm, and we were starting from scratch. If I wasn't working, I was in my room sulking about Beth. Over the first couple of weeks, I kept wondering if Beth was all right. One day I called Sally Hayes. She was glad to hear from me. She said everything was going fine, just like they expected. Tom got a lawyer and wanted to fight the decree. His lawyer told him he was barking up the wrong tree, and if he wanted to go head-to-head against Sally, he better get a new lawyer. Tom was throwing around accusations about Beth. He said she set him up, but when it came to proof, he didn't have any. Sally said she told Tom if he was going to continue accusing Beth of anything that she would take him to court. She was fed up with his whining. Sally also told me that Tom's lawyer mentioned that both Tom and Lisa had acquired syphilis. They had to go on a regimen of shots and couldn't have sex till it cleared up, otherwise they could acquire a new strain from each other. That brought a smile to my face. Finally, Sally said that Beth moved into a nice apartment near her work. She took about half of the stuff from the old apartment to set up her new one. She was told not to talk about me for fear of someone connecting us. Of course she wasn't, but it had only been a couple of weeks so far. Sally did say, when she was talking one-on-one to Beth, that she really missed me and that I was a really nice guy. I would like to say that time flew by while I was in Chicago, but it didn't. I really didn't feel a whole lot better than I did before all this revenge stuff started. At least then, I was able to see Beth walk by every day. I went up to Michigan to visit my parents for Thanksgiving. I had to get away for a few days. It was nice to see family. I took my sister Christmas shopping and bought all my family members something. I stopped by a jewelry store and picked up an engagement and wedding ring for Beth, hoping that someday she would say yes. After the Thanksgiving holiday, I headed back to Chicago. I figured I'd be there about 3 more weeks. Being cold, windy, and lonely was all I could think about in Chicago. The city lights looked beautiful, but not when I didn't have someone to share it with. With that's me and the new agents got the business off the ground floor. It was doing rather well. A lot of customers, clients if you will, came in to start investing money before the end of the year. As I arrived back in Ohio, I was greeted by my boss. He complimented me on the achievements of the new firm. From a work perspective, everything was great. I just hoped my personal life would be good as well. As soon as I got back to my apartment, which was 2 days before Christmas, I called Sally Hayes. I didn't even have a number for Beth since she moved. Sally was so glad to hear from me. She asked about the business, and I told her it went well. I asked her about Beth and how the divorce was coming along. She hesitated before telling me that the divorce was final 2 days before. I asked her for Beth's phone number. She said she wasn't allowed to give it to me, but she would call Beth and let her know I was back in town. I thanked her, and she wished me good luck. I wasn't quite sure how to feel. Beth was now divorced. I had no idea what her thoughts had been over the last few months since I left for Chicago. I had the bright idea of going over to our favorite restaurant where we met for lunch each day. I went there hoping to see her. My friend Sarah saw me and waved to me. I asked her to join me. Maybe I could learn a little something. Sarah began saying how nice it was to see me again. She had heard that I was starting up a new agency for the company in Chicago. We did all the usual chit-chat and talked about the holidays that began tomorrow. She told me about her family and how nice everything was going. I asked her if Beth still worked for the company. Sarah said she did, but that she and her husband had recently gotten a divorce. It happened so quickly. She stated that Beth must have taken it pretty hard because she didn't seem quite as happy now. She refused dates and spent most of her time working. Sarah said she felt sorry for her, but it was just something she had to work out herself. Everyone still loved her and hoped she would someday find the right guy. She deserved more than a cheating husband who was caught with another woman. I asked Sarah if Beth was working today. She said she was, but got a call about an hour ago, and instead of eating lunch, she left for the afternoon. She wouldn't be back until the following week after Christmas. I wished Sarah a Merry Christmas and asked her to say hi to her family for me. Then I got up and went home. Nothing on the answering machine. I was beginning to get a little depressed when the phone rang. I jumped up to answer it, figuring it to be Beth, but it wasn't. It was another telemarketer wanting money. I just slammed the damn phone back down. I knew she had to call me about her investments. On second thought, she didn't have to. We had other agents who could have updated my files for clients while I was gone. The agents and I would share any new business that was assigned to my customer base. I could call the office and see if there was any action taken on any of Beth's accounts. I quickly rang the office, but I got voicemail. I looked up at the clock, surprised that it was 5:12 p.m. Damn. The offices would be closed till Monday for the holidays. I was in the dark here on a holiday weekend. All the offices were closed. Damn it, My emotions were starting to run amok. Did I have her or did I lose her? Damn it, I needed to know something. How was I supposed to make it through this weekend not knowing anything? The phone rang again. I ran to it and answered it. It was Sally, my lawyer. She had called to inform me that she was able to get the message that I was back to Beth. Also, she wanted to let me know that everything about the divorce was final. Tom couldn't file any more motions. He tried but lost them all. He had to cash in more than half his 401k to satisfy the bank credit card charges. I told Sally she was a real friend and was great to do business with. I thanked her for the information and wished her a Merry Christmas. There was a knock on the door. I opened it to find that it was Mary, my neighbor. She collected my mail and cleaned up my apartment for me while I was gone. I invited her in for a few minutes. She was a nice older woman who cleaned apartments to supplement her income. She usually cleaned mine about twice a week. She handed me my mail and gave me a tray of homemade cookies for the holidays. I asked her to wait a second because I had a gift for her also. I went in and gave her an envelope with 3 crisp 100 bills for Christmas. She smiled and thanked me. Then she left. We needed more nice ladies like Mary in this world. She was a delightful person to be around. I was getting hungry, so I called the local pizza shop and ordered a pizza. I asked for it to be delivered. I didn't want to go out anymore tonight. I asked them to stop by the grocery store and pick me up a 12-pack of Miller Lite beer as well. That's the nice part of living in a smaller city, the so-called hometown conveniences. I decided to turn on the TV to watch the latest news and wait for my pizza to arrive. A half hour later, the doorbell rang. I got up to get my pizza. When I opened the door, there stood Beth with a big smile on her face. I had tears growing in my eyes and said, "I thought you were the pizza guy." She smiled. "Sorry to disappoint you. No pizza, just me." I pulled her into the living room and hugged her. God, she always felt good. I missed you, Beth. I missed you terribly. It's so good to see you again. She was getting ready to say something when the doorbell rang again. I opened it, and it was the pizza guy with my beer and pizza. I quickly paid him and closed the door. Then I turned back around to Beth. "Are you hungry? We got pizza and beer," as I held them both up in my hands. Beth looked at me, still smiling. "You are really a funny guy, you know. I was all prepared with what I was going to say, and I get here, and I can't even think straight. I have to tell you a couple of things, and then we can eat pizza while it's still hot. I know you hate cold pizza. Okay, big guy, I missed you too. In case you didn't hear it yet, I'm now a divorced woman. I just found out today that you were back. I didn't want to leave you a phone message that would have been too tacky. I needed to talk to you in person. I left work early after Sally called me to let me know you were home. I went out to buy you kind of a Christmas present. You'll see it after we get done eating. It's not every day you splurge and buy me dinner, so let's eat." As I was getting us a couple of paper plates, I asked her, "What kind of a present?" She just smiled that ice-melting smile and said, "You'll see. Now eat your pizza and pass me a beer." She laughed. While we ate, we talked about her job and how well it was going. I told her about the agency we opened up and explained the details. Both of us skirted the big issues they were to come shortly. After we had enough pizza, Beth looked at me and said, "Are you ready for your kind of a present now?" I smiled and said, "Yep, where is it?" Beth held up a little sack about the size of a small lunch bag. "I'll be right back," she exclaimed as she left the room. I put the pizza and beer on the counter and went into the drawer where I kept the ring I bought for her, took it out, and slipped it into my pocket. She yelled from the bedroom, "Are you ready?" I yelled back, "I think so." When she walked in, she said, "I bought this kind of for you today. You get to unwrap it if you like." She was standing there in revealing clothes. She looked at me and said, "I'm no longer a married woman anymore, and I wouldn't be cheating on any husband now. If you want your present, we can go into the bedroom." I had tears streaming down my face. This is the woman I had wanted for over a year now, standing there. I looked at her and said, "On one condition." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the ring and said, "If you'll marry me." She started crying and ran up to me. As I began to hug her soft, warm body, she screamed out, "Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, 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 God, how I have grown to love you." I lifted her up into my arms and carried her into my bedroom. This was going to be our first time together. It had to be good. I knew it would be. I took my time as I gently kissed around her neck. Everything I was going to be doing from then on was going to be gentle, like making love to an angel. I rolled off of her, and she cuddled close to me, and we fell asleep. We must have slept quite a while. It was totally dark in the house and in the room when we woke up. It had been a long time for me since waking up next to a woman I wanted. There, Beth took a shower and cleaned up while I slipped the leftover pizza into the oven for a little bit. It always tasted better out of the oven. As we ate pizza, we talked some more. I asked Beth when she wanted to get married. She replied that she wanted it to be as soon as possible. She didn't want to wait. By then it was about 10:00 p.m. in the evening. I called Sally Hayes at her house. She answered by asking, "What's the matter, James?" She must have had caller ID. I told her that Beth and I had a problem and maybe she could help solve it, seeing she was a lawyer. "What is it, James?" "I'll help if I can. Beth and I want to get married as soon as possible, but tomorrow is Christmas Eve and we need a judge to marry us. Do you know anyone?" Sally started laughing. "So Beth called you, did she? I'm happy for the both of you. Meet me at the courthouse tomorrow morning. Well, get your marriage license and then come to my house. You see, Mr. Hayes, my husband is a judge. I know he'll marry you. See you tomorrow at 9:00 a.m. sharp." The next morning, Beth, who was dressed beautifully, and I, dressed in a suit, met Sally at the recorder's office. We got our license and headed over to Sally's house to get married. Her husband seemed to be a pretty nice guy for a judge. You never know what to expect with lawyers and judges, but we knew Sally was the best. Beth didn't have much family left in the area, just a few distant cousins, so we decided to head up to Michigan and surprise my family with my new wife. To say they were happy or overjoyed would be putting it mildly. Ecstatic would be a better word. They all loved Beth, how could they not? She was definitely part of the family. Wow, Christmas turned out pretty good after all. We had to head back after Christmas. We both had jobs and now had moving to do. We decided to live in my apartment. Hers was on a month-to-month lease anyway. Each day after work, we would move some of her stuff over to my place. It was fun doing just about everything together. The girls where she worked were so happy for her. They said the old Beth was back. Sarah was a bit shocked when she found out I was the new husband, remembering that I was a bad bastard and very vengeful. I remember Beth telling her, "Don't worry, Sarah has a puppy and I love him dearly." The big New Year's Eve bash was coming up. Most all of the successful business people from the area attended it. I asked Beth, "Sweetheart, want to go to the bash of the year? Our first time that everyone can see us together. I want to show you off. Besides, our ex-spouses might even be there." Beth was thinking, then looked at me and said, "James, I love you with all my heart and I want everyone to know it. Yes, we will be going to the New Year's party, my dear husband." I watched her starting to get ready. Beth was the greatest. Life was good. Off to the New Year's party we went. Beth looked stunning. She looked so good. She was dressed borderline revealing, but in a good way. Everyone wanted us to sit at their table. My boss and his group, Beth's friends, and even the few friends I had. Sally and Judge Hayes invited us to their table. That's where we decided to sit. I looked at Sally and told her I never saw a lawyer look that good. She looked fantastic. They introduced us to everyone else at their table. They were mostly judges and their wives, and all seemed like pretty nice people. The music was loud, but it was New Year's Eve. Beth and I got up and danced all the slow dances. Other men asked Beth to dance, but her answer was always, "Not this year. I only want to dance with my husband." This was our year to be together. The one exception we made was that I danced one dance with Sally, and Beth danced once with the judge. They were special friends. As we were dancing, we found ourselves next to Karen, my ex-wife's sister. It just happened that we almost ran into Karen and her husband on the crowded dance floor. She looked and said, "Oh my God, it's James." I looked over at her and said, "Well, good evening, Karen, and Happy New Year to you." Then I said, "I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Beth. Beth, this is Karen and her husband." He reached forward to shake Beth's hand and said, "John, my name's John." Beth gave her patented smile and said, "Glad to meet you, John and Karen." Then Beth looked at Karen and said, Didn't we meet before at Robinson's restaurant on Old Route 66 about 2 months ago? John replied, No, that place is too expensive for our tastes. Karen turned white and said, Nice meeting you too. We have to get back to our seats. We knew she had to get back and tell Tom and Lisa that we were there. We looked over at their table. Lisa knocked over her drink when she found out I was there. We saw them turn to look at us quickly. We could hear Lisa say, Oh my God, Tom, Hez with your ex-wife. Tom almost fell off his chair trying to turn and look. Karen looked at Lisa and said, Lisa, he introduced her as his wife. Tom said, That son of a bitch set us up. They took us for over 100,000, plus they set us up to get a venereal disease. How did they know everything? Lisa said, James told me that someday he would get even with us. Tom said, Maybe we can try taking them back to court. Karen laughed. Give it up, you two. Do you guys see who they're sitting with? Sally Hayes and a half-dozen judges. And if that's not enough, Tom, he could kick your ass from here into tomorrow. Make no mistake, James is all man, and by the looks of his wife, she's all woman. They make a great couple. It was after midnight, and the crowd was beginning to thin. Sally and the judge said their goodnights, as well as the people at their table. So after our next dance, Beth and I decided to sit in a booth not too far from Lisa, Tom, and their group. Beth left for the restroom. When she came back, she looked at Tom and Lisa, kind of staring at her and me out of the corner of their eyes. Beth asked me if I was ready. I looked at her and asked, Ready for what? To go home, honey? No, James. Are you ready for your revenge? Then, right in front of Tom, Lisa, Karen, and John, she did it. Then, in words loud enough for the other table to hear, she said, Happy New Year, lover. Who said revenge isn't sweet? Thank you for watching. What do you think about James' ultimate revenge on his cheating wife and her lover? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories. Though there's no good way to find out that your wife's having an affair, some ways are worse than others. Learning of my wife's infidelity from my mother probably tops the list of embarrassing ways. It was an added humiliation that I didn't need. Before I married Linda, my mother warned me against her and begged me to find a nice Italian girl to marry. I didn't listen to her, and now that she had proof she was right, she didn't have to remind me of her warning. My name's Jack. I was picking up my 11-year-old son, Brandon, from my mother's house. She was crying. The last time I saw my mother crying was 11 years ago at my father's funeral. At first, I thought my son was injured, but I saw him behind my mother playing with the brand-new tablet I gave him for his birthday 3 days ago. Then I thought Linda, my wife of 18 years, must have had a car accident. With tears forming in my eyes, I asked if Linda was all right. My mother nodded yes, and motioned for me to sit down, asking my son to go play outside on the swing, taking his tablet from him. After Linda dropped off Brandon, he showed my mother his new tablet. He had unknowingly recorded Linda in the car on the way over. My mother then played a recording of my wife's phone call. My wife was making plans with a man named Tom to go away in a few days for a weekend to Miami. She would tell me that it was a business trip and they would have a long weekend of fun. They would leave early Saturday morning. She was now on the way to his house after she dropped off our son at her mother-in-law's, and Tom explained that he would meet her there in 20 minutes. She should use the key under the big rock to let herself in. She had hired Tom's attorney to file for her divorce from me. She and Tom bragged that when they returned from their trip, she would tell me the truth, claim I beat her with a black eye courtesy of Tom, and have me arrested for spousal abuse, jailed, and take everything I owned, including my son. They laughed at how I was just a stupid, boring, clueless insurance agent. Linda said that soon I would be Bubba's new love interest in prison and laughed. Once I was in prison, Tom would move into my house, make love to my wife on our bed, force my son to call him Dad, and prevent me from ever seeing my son again. That was the end of the recording. My wife had no idea that her secret life was now revealed. At first, for just a moment, I thought it might be possible to reconcile if she stopped the affair right now. Then I realized that there was no hope for a happy ending. They weren't planning my divorce, they were planning my destruction. In a few minutes, my love for my wife turned into anger and disgust. I couldn't understand how or why she could hate me so much. Why couldn't she just file for divorce? Why did she have to frame me for a crime, destroy my life, steal my son from me, and have me jailed? She and Tom wanted to go scorched earth on me, so now I would do the same to them. As the shortest kid in all my elementary school classes, I quickly learned that if I didn't fight back decisively against any tough guy, the bullying would never end. I never won any of those fights, but none of those a-holes ever tried again to bully me or fight with me. When the tough guy threw a punch, I would grab his fist, bite his wrist until he opened his fingers, and then I would quickly bend back one or two of his fingers until they broke. It may not have been elegant, but it was effective. I recognized my adversary by his name and voice. He worked with my wife at the same insurance agency. He was much taller than I, much more muscular, and totally self-centered, a trait he shared with my wife. He lived about a mile from me. I'd been to parties at his house where, after more than a few drinks, he bragged about being a stud and being irresistible to married women. After his recent medical procedure, a few more drinks later, and he bragged that he had an injection done to make him about 1.5 inches thicker down below. He called his doctor the Injector General. I thought he was too much of a clown to be a threat to my marriage and dismissed his bragging. That was a major error on my part. It wasn't that I trusted Tom, I trusted my wife. I always laughed at men who were constantly suspicious of their wives and always checked up on them. I always thought that was silly. Now I realized that these men were smarter than I was. Still, I didn't want to go through life as an amateur sleuth, or worse yet, her prison warden. What's the point of living with and loving a woman you didn't trust? My impression of Tom was that he was an arrogant a-hole who always smirked at me when we met. He was single with few expenses other than a fancy car and fancy clothes. He always bragged that he was living la vida loca. I'll give him a la vida loca up his number 5. My mother had a Sicilian temper. I want to wring her neck until she's dead, my mother whispered. What will you do? My mother asked. I don't know yet, but I'm sure as hell going to make it epic. I wasn't interested in just revenge. I was consumed by visions of their annihilation. It was also a matter of self-preservation. I had to destroy them before they destroyed me, and more importantly, before they destroyed my relationship with my son. Jack, don't do anything rash or violent, my mother said. You must stay out of jail for the sake of your son. If you're arrested for beating this guy up, you'll lose custody. Use your brains and your wits, not your fists or your guns. As I previously indicated, I'm not a tough guy. I don't have friends who are tough guys or special forces or Marines. Yes, I'm Sicilian, but to my knowledge, I never even met anyone in the mob. I and most of my friends sell insurance. Our biggest crimes, now that cannabis was legal, were exceeding the speed limit or not stopping long enough at a stop sign. I met my wife when she was the insurance agent I leased an apartment from. That week we had dinner, and later she leased a car from me. It may not be the most romantic way to meet, but our marriage had been good for 17 and a half of the 18 years we were together. I thought I had been a good husband. I did most of the cooking. My mother had been a chef at several high-end Italian restaurants and taught me to cook. I was pretty good at it, though my mother always said there was room for improvement. A couple of times a year I bought my wife flowers. I showered her with compliments. My wife needed that because she was very vain, bordering on narcissistic. I never cheated or even flirted with other women. I rarely drank. I never got drunk. Well, not after that New Year's Eve 11 years ago. I wasn't movie star good-looking, but neither was my wife. I wasn't rich with a mansion and yacht, but I worked hard to support my family while even helping around the house. I spent more time taking care of our son than she did. I won't tell you that I was the world's greatest lover with a muscular physique like a bodybuilder. But she had never complained, at least not to me. The 3 girls with whom I slept before I met my future wife never complained either, though in truth neither did they claim to have seen fireworks or felt the earth move. What the hell did she want? Of course, her hours with her lover were more exciting than our time together. They could act like carefree teenagers with no responsibility. It was forbidden and filled with novelty and the excitement of cheating and someone new. They didn't spend their time together worrying about paying bills, grocery shopping, repairing the house, and helping a child with homework, or pretending to laugh when he told us his fifth-grade version of a joke. Tom never took care of Linda when she was sick or held a wet washcloth to her forehead as she vomited into the toilet like I had on more than one occasion. That's the other side of romance in a marriage, the side that separates permanent real love from mere temporary sexual infatuation. I decided that her cheating had nothing to do with me, but with her craving novelty and excitement. Looking back in time, it was now clear to me that my wife had been having an affair for at least 7 months. Suddenly she had to work late one Tuesday a month showing houses. What the two of them did during the workday was still a mystery, but now I had a clue. I needed to double-check her infidelity. As I drove my son home, we detoured past Tom's house, and I noted my wife's car parked outside. I returned home with tears in my eyes and erased the incriminating recording on my son's tablet. I went to my bedroom, turned on the stereo to drown out any noise, and then cried into my pillow for an hour. I looked into the mirror and saw how red and puffy my eyes were. I showered. My wife was home 2 hours later for dinner time. She kissed me as if nothing was out of the ordinary. I noticed that her hair was damp. She, too, had recently showered. She asked why my eyes were red, and I told her that I got some shampoo in them while I showered. She brought home Chinese food, which she loved. As we sat down for dinner, I asked about her day. She claimed nothing special had happened. She showed some houses to a couple who she derisively labeled looky-loos. When she asked me about my day, I shook my head in sadness and made up a story to try and painlessly teach her a lesson about the consequences of infidelity. I told her of a story I read on the internet about a man who found his wife cheating on him when he returned home early from work. He's in jail now after he beat the crap out of his wife and her lover. His wife used to be beautiful, but I think he knocked out all her teeth, and her boyfriend's Johnson is half the size it used to be. I guess he won't be using it anymore with women who are married, or I guess any other kind of woman. It's exactly what he deserved. My wife was shocked. The scum-sucker, why didn't he just file for divorce? She asked. I shook my head. No, I think he did the right thing. Maybe he'll go to jail for 6 months, but if there are any married men on the jury, he won't be convicted. She and her lover, however, will carry those scars for the rest of their lives. I think he was perfectly justified. If I were in his shoes, I'd have done the same thing. I took my wife's chin with my hand. You have such beautiful teeth. My wife looked at me with shock on her face. I wouldn't, however, have been so obvious. I wouldn't want to go to jail. I would have stalked them both, found an opportune time, and while wearing a mask, tasered both of them, then beat the crap out of them. Lucky for me that I'm married to a woman who's always been faithful to me. Isn't that right, dear? My wife rose from her chair, weak on her feet and shaking as she kissed me. Of course, dear. I'd never do anything like that. Then she went over to the liquor cabinet and poured herself a glass of Bailey's Irish Cream, drank it, and then poured herself another. I took my wife's hand and told her how much I loved her. I told her that if she cheated, it would destroy me and our son. She swore that she never did and never would. I think her lies hurt even more than her adultery. Good, I responded, because I would never want to harm you. I thought I had scared my wife straight, and she was smart enough to take the hint and end her affair, but she wasn't as bright as I had previously thought. She told me that she was attending a real estate symposium in Austin for the weekend. I told her that was exciting and I would enjoy spending the weekend with her there. That's not a good idea, she responded. She would be in classes all day and too tired to enjoy any time with me afterward, and besides, Austin was completely boring with nothing for me to do there while she was in class. She would be leaving at 10:00 a.m. on Saturday from her office. I agreed with her and said I wouldn't go. She seemed relieved. I remembered my mother's warning not to use my guns, and that gave me a plan for revenge, and I thought it was a good one. I went to the basement and opened my gun safe. I pushed aside my Colt 1911.45 caliber pistol and the Beretta 9mm. I bought those in the past few years, and they were registered with the state, leaving an unwanted, indelible trail leading back to me like Hansel and Gretel's breadcrumbs. I took out an ancient Browning .22 caliber pistol that I had inherited from my dad, who inherited it from his dad before gun sales were recorded. There was no record of the original purchase over 80 years ago that would lead back to me or my family. I put on latex gloves and disassembled it, wiping off any fingerprints from the pieces as well as the bullets in the magazine. Then I put it back together. I threw away the box of .22 caliber ammo in someone's trash can a mile away from my home. Now there was no evidence that I had ever owned a .22. Later, I went to a hardware store at the other end of town and with cash bought zip ties large enough to handcuff people. Of course, I wore a big hat and sunglasses in case of security cameras. My plan was simple but required some good luck. I also made a phone call to the Austin Casino and Hotel. It was part of my alibi in case my plan went south. The next morning, I watched Tom leave for work. I used the key he told my wife he hid in his planter and entered his condo. I found his computer and searched on Yahoo and Google about a bunch of terror outfits. I figured that if they were leaving Saturday afternoon, I had just barely the window of opportunity that I needed. He would probably be packed up Friday night. I had to find a way to get into his suitcase. I had no way of entering his car trunk, so I had to disable his car and force him to take my wife's car, for which I did have a key. On Friday night, I went for a walk. I drove to a block from Tom's house and punctured 2 of his tires with nails that I left in the clean, shiny, obviously brand new tires. Then I drove home. The next morning, my wife received a phone call from Tom and had to pick him up to drive him to work. So far, so good. I drove to work, parked away from the security cameras, clocked in, and then took a bathroom break. I quickly drove to my wife's office and parked a block away. I opened the trunk on my wife's car, and while wearing rubber gloves, I placed the handgun and zip ties in Tom's suitcase. Then I drove back to work with no one aware I'd been gone. 4 hours later, I received a frantic phone call from my wife. She was under arrest at the airport and needed me to post bail and hire a criminal lawyer for her. "What the hell are you doing at the airport?" I screamed. "It's complicated," she replied. "Let me speak to the cops," I said while trying to remain calm. The TSA inspector explained that my wife was with a man who tried to board a plane with a gun and zip ties for handcuffing people. They were both under arrest. My wife would be transferred to a federal holding facility awaiting further investigation. I thanked him and hung up. You probably wouldn't be surprised to learn that I didn't post bail or hire a lawyer for her. Her parents did. They also retrieved her car. At their trial, my wife and Tom's defense was based on the theory that I had planted the gun and zip ties after I learned of their affair. Easy to claim, not so easy to prove. When the prosecution placed into evidence Tom's browser history of researching various terror outfits, the defense claimed that I broke in and did it, but they couldn't prove how. Other than that, I guessed where he hid a key to his place. From the look on the lawyer's face, even he thought that was a stretch. Their lawyer grilled me for an hour on the witness stand but never laid a glove on me. He asked about my gun collection. I told him of the 2 guns I owned, one a .45 caliber, the other a 9mm. I had never owned a .22, I said. The police had checked my gun safe, and that officer's testimony corroborated my story. There was no record of me ever buying or owning such a gun. I had even made reservations for myself and our son for a hotel in Austin, where she said she was going, claiming I wanted to surprise my wife because I believed her story. My wife's attorney also asked if I slashed Tom's tires. I replied, no. When her attorney asked, "So you expect the jury to believe you were that naive about your wife's infidelity?" "Counselor," I responded, "I admit that I wasn't naive." Her attorney's eyes opened wide. He was shocked at my admission. Before he could say another word, I continued, "I plead guilty to being an idiot and a total fool who loved and trusted my wife 100 for 18 years. Of course, the defense attorney objected, but it was overruled since he brought up my naivety on cross-examination. The U.S. attorney put my time card for that day into evidence. It showed I was at work and had no opportunity to plant any evidence. Then she introduced my wife's tablet, which was password protected, and showed no spyware enabling me to read its contents. The U.S. Attorney placed into evidence the report from A80A Auto Club, indicating that the flat tires on Tom's car were caused by two nails. The tires had not been slashed. She asked if I had removed any money from our joint bank accounts, canceled her credit cards, changed my will, my life insurance, or stopped depositing my paycheck into our joint account before she was arrested. Those are things that a man who knows his wife is cheating would do automatically. I had done none of those things, which was evidentiary that I didn't know about my wife's affair. The U.S. Attorney and I had spent several hours together going over my testimony. She was a relatively new attorney, and this was, in essence, her trial by fire. We got along well. I thought she had a great sense of humor because she laughed at all my jokes. She was an adorable brunette, but too young for me. While I was on the stand, she asked if my wife left for girls' nights out. I said she didn't. She asked if she came home very late from work. I said rarely, but so did I on occasion. We went through all the telltale signs of a cheating wife. She didn't have a secret stash of sexy lingerie, etc., and I answered that I saw no signs of infidelity, or I would have immediately filed for divorce, or at the very least hired a private detective to investigate. Despite the defense attorney's success in removing every divorced person from the jury pool, they were both found guilty. Tom was sentenced to 12 years in prison. My wife was sentenced to 3 years for conspiracy. As they were led out of the court, my wife collapsed. 2 bailiffs had to carry my sobbing wife to the holding cell. Her lover tried to break free from his bailiff, screaming that he would kill me. He posed a thumb and forefinger as a pretend gun. I responded with just one raised finger. I think you know which finger I raised. I often refer to it as deploying my driving finger. 2 days later, the cute U.S. Attorney asked me out to lunch. She wanted me to meet Emily, her older sister. She was a 5th-grade teacher who was just as cute as her sister and 2 years younger than I was. We dated for a few weeks, but nothing came of it. I just wasn't ready to date. I was dealing with too much anger and hatred to be good company for anyone. I asked her for a rain check until I emotionally recovered. She agreed. My wife's dreams of taking me for everything I owned in a divorce quickly faded like sunlight on a cold winter's evening. I had some regrets about my scorched earth plan, but they left me no choice. Somebody was headed for prison. I had to make sure it wasn't me. It was only a question of who struck first. If they hadn't bragged about keeping me from my son, I wouldn't have done what I did. There was no way I'd let them destroy my relationship with Brandon. That was the tripwire, the fatal mistake that led to their downfall. 7 months later, my divorce was final. My jailbird wife received nothing from our divorce. Once I took our son to visit his mother in prison, but he was so traumatized that I never again took him to see her, though they do write to each other. I phoned Emily and we began seeing each other. I don't know where our relationship is going, but so far I don't see any red flags or other warning signs. Emily seems to have a weakness for my homemade spaghetti bolognese. That's another advantage of being raised and taught to cook by a Sicilian mother. After I made clams casino and lasagna for her, Emily moved in with me. I don't know what happened to Tom in prison. Linda was now the property of Butch, her 300-pound cellmate, a former professional male wrestler who now claims to be a woman despite still having a tool. That's California for you. He shaved Linda's head to show that he owned her. She and Butch were in some federal prison for women living La Loca now. For the second story, my name is Ethan. Please don't call me E. It points out my shortcomings and makes me sad. E is a name for a fun-loving, devil-may-care kind of guy pursued by beautiful, dangerous women. I'm not like that. I'm a serious science major. I'm so ordinary and average that I am almost invisible, especially to women. I'm so plain and undistinguishable that I would make a great spy if that wasn't bad enough for me in the romance department. I was a physics major like my brilliant father and a nonviolent pacifist like my Quaker mother. If I ever wrote my autobiography, I would title it The Invisible, Nonviolent Nerd. Despite my lifelong lack of luck with girls, suddenly and inexplicably, I was pursued by 2 beautiful college co-eds in my freshman year of college. Apparently, I possess some sort of quality that foreign girls found attractive, unlike all the American girls in high school who found me boring. So you can imagine how shocked I was when my beautiful ex-girlfriend Anastasia, or as I like to call her, the Dragon Lady, shot and killed my beautiful new girlfriend Lana. I never knew I possessed a quality that would make a beautiful, exotic woman kill for me. Being a physicist means solving mysteries. Women, however, were a mystery I would never solve. On our first day in the autumn semester of my freshman year in college, I met Anastasia, or as I called her, the Dragon Lady, in the cafeteria. She was also in all of my classes, which was an odd coincidence. She looked and acted like the Asian Fatale character in the comic book and TV show Terry and the Pirates that I watched on cable. Of all the boys in the cafeteria, most of whom were taller and better looking than I was, she sat down next to me to talk. I'm a complete idiot when it comes to women and what to say to them. It was a struggle, but I didn't drool. I undiplomatically asked why she was talking to me instead of any of the far more handsome boys at the next table. She said smart men were her weakness. I could hardly catch my breath. She wore a traditional Chinese-style turtleneck silk dress, a cheongsam, with a silk screen of a fire-breathing dragon on the back. The Dragon Lady was beautiful, brilliant, mysterious. She seemed a little bit dangerous, and to be perfectly honest, you might call her sinister. She had long black hair and dark eyes that looked right through me. That's why I should have run away, but instead, I fell in love. I could count on one hand all the women who had ever flirted with me. Actually, I could do it on one finger. She had an accent that I couldn't identify, and she wouldn't tell anyone where the accent was from. At least once a week, she would disappear for a few hours. She would never tell me where she went or what she did. She wasn't as affectionate with me as I wished. Sometimes I felt like she was my babysitter, not my girlfriend. She said she liked being mysterious. While the rest of us in college lived in cramped dorms, she had a beautiful penthouse apartment in a high-rise. I stayed in her apartment with her, but she wouldn't sleep with me for the first 2 weeks we were together. I was so excited I was climbing the walls. For our 1-month anniversary, I bought us 2 sets of rollerblades and all the wrist guards and knee guards, and we rollerbladed together on the bike path at the ocean hand in hand. It marked a major change in our relationship. She was so excited by my gift of rollerblades that you might have thought I bought her a Ferrari. She had never had rollerblades or skates as a child and always wanted them. She really warmed up to me, and I felt real affection from her. Several times, men in suits took photographs of the two of us while we skated. They didn't look like tourists. They looked so much like feds that all they needed was to have FBI tattooed on their foreheads. I was pretty familiar with what FBI agents looked like because of my father's work. He did some kind of top-secret scientific work for the government, and my whole family had to endure a rigorous semi-annual FBI security check. I knew never to discuss his work with anyone. That night after we rollerbladed, we slept together for the first time. It was the greatest night of my life. The Dragon Lady instantly knew it was my first time. "There's a first time for everyone. Let me teach you how to pleasure a woman," she whispered. It was the greatest class I ever took. Judging by her reaction, I passed the final. So now we were Ethan and the Dragon Lady. Anastasia didn't understand the reference until later when I showed her some Terry and the Pirates comic books. She laughed so hard that tears came out of her eyes, and then she kissed me. I felt like this was my first time at bat, and I had hit a grand slam home run. We got along great and had a lot of respect for one another, with one exception. She couldn't believe how much sugar I put in my coffee. She called me her pre-diabetic lover. She had a peculiar habit when we walked arm in arm. She had to have her right hand in her jacket's right pocket. She would only hold my hand with her left hand. I thought it was silly, but said nothing. One night after some Thai food, Anastasia had an upset stomach. For at least an hour, I held a cold, wet washcloth to her forehead as she vomited into the toilet. "I hit the jackpot when I found you," Anastasia said, and then heaved again. Though normally she seemed to be the strong and invulnerable one in our relationship, I was captivated by how defenseless she was now that she was sick. Being able to care for her that evening made me feel stronger and deepened our bond. I was definitely not a macho Haman, but I instinctively understood how to care for a woman I loved. As I said that to myself, I was struck by the realization that I was actually in love for the first time in my life. For the first time in my life, I understood what being in love felt like. It felt amazing. For 3 months, life was good. No, it wasn't just good, it was in fact great. I didn't have a lot of money to spend on her, but she didn't care, or at least she never said anything. The wardrobe in her closet cost more than my car. I took her to the zoo, the Griffith Observatory, and many more free cultural places, and we had a great time on the cheap. I couldn't wait to take her home to meet my parents. One Saturday night, we went to see a play in downtown San Francisco. She looked extra special, gorgeous. She wore her hair up with a long, sharp Chinese-style hairpin through it. Because I couldn't afford the parking lot, I found a space for free a few blocks from the theater. After the show, we were walking back to the deserted street when 3 big guys waiting next to my car blocked us. I didn't know what to do, but the dragon lady did. She laughed, which infuriated them. One held handcuffs in his hand, the other 2 aimed guns at us. The dragon lady's right hand was, as always, inside her coat pocket. She apparently had a gun in her pocket and shot them through her coat. One was hit in the chest, and the other 2 in their heads. The one shot in the chest lunged at her, knocking the gun from her hand. Anastasia turned sideways and kicked him in his face, which stopped him for an instant. Then she took out the long, sharp hairpin from her hair and plunged it into her assailant's neck, which ended his attack. After she picked up from the ground her snub-nosed Colt Python .357 Magnum revolver with a soft hammer, she put a round into his head as he choked on his own blood. A nondescript van laid rubber as it raced away. She didn't bat an eye but took my hand, and we quickly entered my parked car. She did mention how pissed she was to have ruined her beautiful coat. To say I was totally freaked out doesn't even begin to express my feelings. "Who are you?" I asked. She just smiled and didn't answer. "Are you some kind of spy or assassin?" "Well, I suppose I could be both, but let's just say I'm a girl who was once mugged and is now always prepared." Then she took out her cell phone, made a call, and whispered what sounded like cleanup 2 blocks south of the Fox Theater on Grand Avenue on the east side of the street. But I was so upset that I can't be sure that's what she said. I didn't know why she had to kill them. If it was a mugging, we should have just given them our money. Though I was puzzled why one of them held handcuffs in his hands. My mother was a Quaker, and that's how I was raised. We're nonviolent pacifists. Loving a killer tore my heart out. I tried to balance my love for Anastasia against the values I was raised with. Now that I saw her kill 3 men, I could never take my dragon lady, a killer, home to meet my pacifist mother. I stayed awake all night until I came to a decision. In the morning, I told her I would never reveal that she shot those men to anyone, but I could no longer stay with her. Violence was against all the beliefs I held dear. She accepted what I said. I saw tears in her eyes as she kissed me on my right cheek. Then I took my suitcase and left her apartment. As I left, I heard her whisper, "I really loved you." I got into my car and cried for a half hour before I pulled away. How could I love such a cruel, cold killer? How could she kill so easily while being so kind and loving with me? You'll never understand women. We saw one another every day in class, but didn't speak to each other. We only nodded. In the cafeteria, I sat with friends. She always sat 100 feet away, alone. I missed her a lot and was tempted to run over and kiss her, but I didn't. To tell the truth, as much as I loved her, I was also that much afraid of her. A week later, I was rollerblading alone on the bike path, lost in my memories of Anastasia, when an incredibly beautiful girl lost balance on her rollerblades, falling and taking me down with her. My pants were torn, but neither of us were hurt, so we just laughed. The girl offered to buy me a coffee to make amends, which I immediately accepted. Over our extra-long coffee break, she told me that she had 2 tickets to a jazz club and wanted to go on a date with me that weekend to the club. I loved jazz and was very excited. She was very touchy-feely with me, and I loved it. She told me about her family. Her father was a police officer, as was her mother. I explained that my dad was a scientist and my mom was a 4th-grade teacher at a Quaker school. She was fascinated and wanted to meet them. We had dinner that night with my parents, and we all got along great. She spoke with my father as much as she spoke with me. She had no interest in my mother. For a moment, I thought she was flirting with my dad. She had a scientific background and asked my dad questions about his work and if she and I could visit his lab. Even though he had a few drinks, he wouldn't answer her questions. He repeated the Tom Cruise joke from Top Gun that if he told her, he would have to kill her. We all laughed. He did say that he was proud of me for following in his footsteps as a scientist. I wasn't madly in love with Lana like I was with Anastasia, but I liked her a lot. I thought it could grow into love. I guess with the self-confidence I gained from my relationship with Anastasia, I was more desirable to women. That night we met outside the club and went inside together. We ran into two male friends of hers, and we all shared a table. It was a great night. I really enjoyed her company and the company of her friends, whose names I couldn't pronounce. They acted like I was the most interesting and exciting guy on earth, as they hung on every word I spoke and laughed at all of my jokes. Lana couldn't keep her hands off me. I was on top of the world. The guys kept buying us all drinks, and I did, in fact, drink too much, much more than the rest of our party. With help, I staggered out of the club. They said I was too drunk to drive, and I agreed. They guided me towards their panel van, and I stopped to catch my breath. Lana slid open the side door to the panel van, and the other guys were guiding and pushing me inside when 3 shots rang out. From my previous experience with the Dragon Lady, I recognized the explosive sound that a .357 Magnum makes. The Dragon Lady and 2 guys with her jumped out of another panel van and ran towards me, firing as they ran. Lana and one of the guys were now missing their heads. The third one lay on the ground pulling out a gun. He aimed it at Anastasia. I still loved her. I couldn't let him hurt her. I didn't think I acted instinctively and pushed the gun aimed at my Dragon Lady into his chest while I pushed his finger to pull the trigger, killing him instantly. I was a Quaker and ashamed of myself. I began vomiting into the gutter. Anastasia administered a coup de grace to the heads of Lana and her 2 friends, then ransacked their pockets, taking their wallets and cell phones. She asked if I was all right and tried to kiss me. I pushed her away. Then they shoved me into their van. One of the Dragon Lady's guys drove off in the other van with the 3 dead bodies. As drunk as I had been, I quickly sobered up. I just killed a man. How could I have done that? I was a Quaker. What the hell just happened? The Dragon Lady handed me a thermos of coffee and ordered me to drink. I wasn't about to argue with a stone-cold murderer, so I drank. My alcohol-soaked judgment was a little off, and I asked if they had any sugar for the coffee. Anastasia started laughing. They drove into a warehouse, and we went up to an apartment in a freight elevator. By now, I was sober enough to be scared and kept my mouth shut. They spread dozens of photos on the dining room table of Lana and her 2 friends, plus 5 more people who seemed to have been stalking me for the past 2 weeks. Who are you and who are they? I think I was sober but was still so confused that I didn't understand anything. The Dragon Lady spoke as she handed me a cup of coffee and some sugar. We're from the Ukrainian intelligence agency. Ukrainian? But you're Asian, I said. I'm half Asian, she said. Your late girlfriend isn't named Lana. Her name is Svetlana Petrov. She and her friends were a kidnap and hit team who worked for the FSB, the Russian Ministry of Intelligence, Anastasia said. Artem took the floor. Russia has assembled thousands of bomb-carrying drones to destroy Ukraine. Your father has succeeded in developing electronic countermeasures to make the Russian drones crash. The Russians planned on kidnapping you and threatening to kill you unless your father revealed how his countermeasures could be overcome. Then Anastasia spoke. I was assigned to shadow and protect you. That's why we were ambushed outside the play we saw that night. Unfortunately, they didn't give up. It actually worked out well that you broke up with me. It enabled us to flush them all out. I think I looked like a lovesick puppy when I said to Anastasia, you used me as bait, so I was just a job for you. She took my hand. Yes, at the beginning, but it turned into something more, a lot more for me. Artem put his hand on my shoulder. You're all she's talked about for the past month. You must be awfully special." I think I blushed. I was heavily conflicted. I was raised to be a nonviolent pacifist, even if it meant my death. Anastasia had saved my life twice, but she had killed 6 people to do it. On one hand, my upbringing told me that this was evil and she was wrong. On the other hand, because of her actions, I was still alive. I liked being alive. My mother's religion was a noble abstraction, but I now understood the concept of kill or be killed. I decided that it is morally okay to kill a murderer if in the long run it saves lives, especially if one of the lives is mine or the woman I loved. I ran through all of the many hours of philosophical discussions I had in Quaker schools about nonviolence. Now, however, I understood that this decision was easy. It all came down to this life or death, them or us. It now seemed so simple and clear. A man tried to kill the woman I loved, but I killed him first. I felt guilty that I didn't feel guilty. I tried to rationalize that I acted in defense of another, but the Quaker religion does not acknowledge that exception. I guess I was no longer a Quaker. I wanted to stay alive, so I did what I had to do. Though I acted instinctively now, an hour later, with plenty of time to reconsider my action, I wouldn't change a thing. Anastasia took my hand. "I know about your religious beliefs. How are you feeling right now after you killed a man?" I think I understand the Quaker religion much better right now. Most of the time, it's a wonderful philosophy, but it's not a suicide pact. Perhaps most other Quakers didn't feel that way, but we must each make our own decisions. That's the essence of free will. "What about the other guys in these photos?" I asked. Anastasia looked at her watch. "Earlier this evening, they were also eliminated." "Will they keep coming after me?" I asked as I nervously tapped my toes. Artem spoke with a serious voice. "We believe so. But now they'll really want your scalp because of you. They've lost more than 10 of their best agents." "Oh, great. Now what do I do?" I covered my face with my hands. The dragon lady put her hand on my back and rubbed it. "You can stay here until they kill you, or you can live with me and accept a full scholarship at the Institute for Science in Kiev. By the time you graduate, the technology will have advanced enough that your father's work will be obsolete and you will be safe." All worries about exile and murder were erased from my mind. "Live with you? Do you mean that?" The dragon lady pulled my head towards her. "Yes, you're something of an acquired taste, but you've grown on me. I didn't lie to you when we first spoke. I'm only turned on by really smart men, and you're as smart as they come." "Okay, I'll go to Ukraine," I whispered. I didn't think I had a choice. One of the guys made a phone call, and the next thing I knew, we were driving to the Long Beach harbor. The dragon lady said we wouldn't be safe at the airport. The Russians would be watching for us there. We boarded a ship bound for who knows where, with our ultimate destination in Ukraine. The next morning, we were out at sea. I walked the deck with Anastasia and the other guys. I put my arms around Anastasia and told her I loved her. Then she kissed me back. "I love you too, Ethan." I put my arms around Anastasia. "I no longer feel like an Ethan dragon lady. From now on, you can call me E." She pointed to her 3 associates, each of whom wore a shoulder holster, as did I. "Of course, E, and these are your pirates. Thanks for joining us for this intense and gripping tale. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more incredible stories. What would you do if you found out your partner was planning to frame you and destroy your life? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay tuned and stay curious. Samantha and I got married 8 years ago. Everyone describes their wife in these stories as something exceptional, and I can understand that because I've had a bit of time to think about it. My Sam was a real looker, no doubt about that. Exceptional? I don't know. I know I fancied her. I'd known Samantha for a long time, since we were teenagers, in fact. I was a couple of years older than her, so for me she had always been just the young girl down the street. Then when she was 16, something happened that seemed to lock us together. I was just about to go off to State University and had left my buddies after an evening in the pub. It wasn't too late, but it was just getting dark when I took a shortcut through the local park. Just as well I did, maybe, because I came upon young Samantha being annoyed by a couple of boys about her age. I say annoyed, But it was more serious than that, and if I hadn't come along at that moment, then who knows what might have happened. Well, her version has always been that I waded in like some hero and saved her, but the reality was that once I confronted the two boys, they took fright and took off. Either way, I became something special to her, and for the rest of the summer, I kept noticing her. Not quite following me around, but certainly doing her best to be wherever I'd be. My buddies made fun of me, of course, as at 20 I was far too old for her, but even then I had to admit she was a very pretty young girl with, even at that age, the most superb pair of long, shapely legs. Then I went off to study for 4 years and hardly saw her again till I went back after graduating and spent a long summer there before I went off to my new job. By then, of course, it was her who was 20, and me nearly 24, a somehow different situation altogether, which matched up with quite what a beautiful young woman she had matured into. Her continuing affection for me was extremely acceptable. We got together and became boyfriend and girlfriend, walking hand in hand in the park and kissing and cuddling whenever we had the chance. By then, I was hardly still a virgin, but she was, and despite several near misses, that is what she remained. That's not to say that I didn't make myself acquainted with the wonderful softness of her body, but that was it. It didn't worry me too much, as underneath I still imagined myself as her protector. Samantha still told people about the time I had saved her from a fate worse than death. I'm pretty sure Samantha fell even more deeply in love with me that summer, and in all honesty, I couldn't have been far behind. But it wasn't to be, not then at least. And despite openly discussing other possibilities, we sadly parted company as she went off to Central Metropolitan University and me to my first serious job in Houston. We couldn't have been much further apart. She swore to be faithful to me, but I took that with a pinch of salt. I had just spent 4 years as a student myself and was well aware of how things change and what temptations there were. I did visit her a few times, but the last time it was so obvious that she had another life to worry about, and we simply drifted apart. That could have been it, of course, as I certainly didn't hang around, becoming for a few years a bit of a party animal on the Houston scene and going through a succession of different girls. But then I changed my direction a little and ended up back near her home, and Samantha came back into my life. She had graduated by then and was working already when her parents invited me around. I have to say that the first welcome I got from darling Sam was a little less warm than I expected, but that soon changed. Indeed, she had changed. She had grown up, become more sophisticated, more worldly wise, and yes, she had lost her virginity, and unfortunately, it hadn't been to me. No matter, really, and who was I to complain? Then one evening she told someone I was still her special hero, and we seemed to be back where we'd left off. I renewed my acquaintance with her, and this time we didn't stop there. We were soon screwing away like bunny rabbits, and the more we made love, the more we fell in love. Marriage followed as sure as morning follows night, and 8 years later we were still as much in love as we ever had been. Samantha was sometimes a bit odd, didn't approve of all manner of things, but never pushed her views too far, so it never was a problem. We were happy, really happy, and the future looked bright. My problem started when my company decided to promote me. No problem with that, except that it was to the bustling city of Dallas, where my loving wife had spent her years at the university. It was that or the Middle East, and since we wanted to start a family, Dallas just seemed to make more sense. No problem there either, at least not for the first couple of weeks while we found ourselves a temporary rented flat and settled in. I knew I'd miss going to watch the Cowboys play football, and Dallas City was hardly going to replace them in my affections. But overall, Dallas seemed not a bad place to be in. For those of you who don't know it, it is a very lively city with lots of nightlife. Then one evening she suggested that we do a bit of a tour of the city and look in on a few of the places she used to frequent as a student. We had a drink in a few of the student pubs, but even Samantha felt a bit out of place since it had been 10 years since she had graduated from Central Met. We ate at a restaurant where she had worked for a while, but even there she found nobody that she remembered. Even the decoration had changed, and it was obvious that she was feeling a little disappointed with the evening. It simply didn't have the magic that she had been hoping for. Strange just how a little thing like a place redecorating since you were last there can really make someone so utterly disappointed. The whole evening looked as if it was going to end so poorly. "I know," she declared at last. "There was a little pub on the edge of town that I worked in during my final year. It wasn't a student pub, so maybe some of the locals will still be around." It was still early evening, so we walked hand in hand through the city center like the two lovers we were, not bothering with the car, till at last she led me down a couple of back alleys. The nature of the buildings began to change from bright city lights to shabby backstreet houses and crumbling workshops. "Was it like this when you were here?" I asked Samantha doubtfully, and she laughed, telling me that it hadn't changed. She lived not far away in some cheap flat that she had shared with 3 other girls, one of whom had worked in the same pub as her for some time. "Just around this corner," she told me at last, the joy in her voice so obvious that it made me grin. And then, there in front of us, was a grimy-looking pub that I wouldn't normally have dreamed of going in on my own. No matter, with Samantha the way she was dressed, not that she was dressed down or anything that simply wasn't her style. Samantha was the epitome of smart in her appearance, from her neatly cut short dark hair to her smart suits and formal high heels. That evening was an exception, and she'd worn a short skirt, not very short at all, but for her, just a little more daring than normal. I joked that maybe it was to remind her of her student days, but on reflection, just perhaps she had some idea of how the evening was going to pan out. Maybe not, though. No, I think if she'd known, then she wouldn't have left our flat. The Rose and Crown, the pub was called, with 2 typical big period-etched multicolored windows to the front that no doubt looked very fine in their day. "You sure this is it?" I queried hesitantly. "Of course," she replied, "not so bad once you get inside." With that, she flashed me a beautiful smile, the one I loved so much since I'd known her as a young girl, and pushed open the pub door. Little did I know at the time that I would never feel the same again about that smile. I followed her in, and she was right. The interior was old-fashioned but quite clean, with a long, dark wooden bar and a lovely old mirror behind. The windows that looked so grubby from outside actually looked fine from within, as the lights from the street lamp shone through them, giving the bar a warm sort of glow. Samantha stood there, entranced, at last recognition registering on her face. "It hasn't changed a bit," she said quietly to nobody in particular. "I shouldn't think it's changed much in 50 years, I added, which made her giggle a little and squeeze my hand as she looked lovingly up at me. "Oh, look, Tom, look," and she was off, letting go of my hand and scooting across the wooden floor to the other end of the bar. "Hi there, remember me?" I heard her say to the barman, who turned around to look at her. He looked her up and down, appraising the pretty young woman in front of him. Then a smile came to his face as he recognized who had just greeted him. "Samantha!" he cried. "Is that really you, Samantha?" Samantha stood there, nodding her head in confirmation, grinning up at the tall, lanky barman whose name I never discovered. I couldn't help grinning myself as I realized that at last Samantha had found someone who remembered her, and the evening wasn't going to be a total waste after all. He whooped with some sort of joy and rushed from behind the bar, taking Samantha in his arms and cuddling her tightly, kissing her full on the lips. The cuddle and kiss didn't last long enough for me to get jealous or anything, but the first uneasy feeling slithered coldly through my gut, removing the grin from my face. They talked animatedly about things I knew nothing of, and I waited to be introduced. The talk passed on to people who Samantha had obviously known back then, and I still waited in vain to be introduced when another guy walked into the pub. The barman called out to him and told him to come and see who'd turned up. He walked straight by me and yelled, "Samantha!" as soon as he spotted her. Again, I had to endure my wife being cuddled and kissed by a man I'd never seen before. Again, I waited in vain to be introduced. "Mark will be in any moment, Samantha," the second guy told her, and to my amazement, she blushed. "Thought that would get to you," he added, seeing her reaction. "Really?" answered Samantha. "Mark still comes in, does he? Heck, really be here soon. Who the hell was Mark? Samantha had never mentioned a Mark before. No reason why she should, of course, but I didn't like the way the evening was heading, and I didn't like the way she was ignoring me either. I was still left there standing on my own, feeling like a spare prick. I cleared my throat to attract her attention, and when that failed, I coughed loudly. The barman looked around at me, but Samantha continued to ignore me, deep in conversation with the other man. "Sorry, mate," the barman called over to me. "I'll be with you in a minute." What could I do? I could have gone and grabbed her arm or something, but she was so obviously lost in the fun of meeting her old friends that I decided to bide my time, walking up to the bar just behind them and leaning on the counter. "Yes, mate?" asked the barman at long last, tearing himself away from my wife. "What can I get you?" "A pint of best, please," I told him, "and whatever the lady wants." The smile left the barman's face as I said it. "I don't think this little lady takes drinks from just anyone, mister," he snarled at me, evidently totally unaware that I was her husband, or that she was even with me. "I think she'll have a drink with me," I responded, my temper just beginning to rise now. "Look here, mate," the barman started. "You can't come in here." And it was as far as he got, however, as at last Samantha turned around, the raised voices finally attracting her attention, and interrupted him. "It's okay, Hez with me," she informed the other two casually, hardly bothering to so much as look over at me. The barman shut up but still scowled at me as he pulled my beer. "That will be 3.50 then," he demanded as he pushed the glass over the counter towards me. "And the drink for the lady?" I queried. "That's on the house," he brusquely informed me, then promptly asked her what she wanted and poured it for her without looking back at me. I stood there sipping my pint, wondering what the hell was going on. My wife was still deep in conversation with the other two, laughing and giggling for all she was worth as they recounted old stories and told her what had happened since she had left. Mark's name cropped up several times, I noted, and a worrying smile flitted across Samantha's face each time. She still continued to completely ignore me, and I was beginning to get quite upset at her strange behavior. I was about to step in between them to reclaim my wife's attention when the pub door opened and two big chaps breezed in, one of them white and the other a West Indian. "Hey, Mark," shouted out the barman the instant he spotted them. "Look who's turned up out of the blue." So this was the mysterious Mark, big sod, and rather tough-looking with it as well. Mark stopped in his tracks when he spotted Samantha, and a huge grin creased his face. "Bugger me, Samantha," he shouted. "Where have you appeared from?" Without saying anything more, he bounded past me, and as the others moved out of his way, grabbed her and embraced her. Samantha kissed him back as enthusiastically as he was kissing her. This time it did go on a bit too long for my liking, and the way the others stood there beaming at the two of them as they were locked together didn't help either. Then his left hand dropped down her back and cupped the cheek of her bottom. I'd had enough. I stepped forward to break it up, deciding that if Samantha was going to allow that and couldn't even so much as involve me in her friends, then it was time we were going. I only managed one step forward and was brought to a sudden stop by a large, strong hand on my shoulder, gripping me hard. "Wouldn't if I were you, mate," came a deep voice from behind me as I realized the black guy had anticipated my move and stepped forward to prevent it. "Get your hand off me," I told him angrily, trying unsuccessfully to throw him off. All four guys turned on me at that point, all squaring up at me, expecting trouble. "Oh, leave him alone," Samantha told them before anything happened. "He brought me here tonight. He's okay. He won't cause any problems." All this without so much as even looking at me or acknowledging me in any way. Her head turned towards me for a moment, but her eyes never met mine. Brought her here, did I? No mention that I'd known her since she was a kid, and that I happened to be her bloody husband. "Stay cool, man," the big black guy told me, more than a hint of a threat in his voice. He let go of my shoulder but eased me back away from the group around Samantha, inserting his huge frame between them and me. I couldn't believe what was happening. An icy cold lump started to form in my gut. An hour ago I had been hand in hand with my loving wife, almost skipping happily through the middle of Dallas City Center, as much in love as any couple could be. Now this, in 60 short minutes, left on the sidelines and shut out by my wife and her friends. They made a move over towards one of the tables as the pub started to get busy. I saw several attractive-looking women come in and talk to Mark or his sidekick before going out again or taking their place at the bar. I wasn't such an innocent not to recognize exactly what the women were, or to be more precise, what they did for a living. Bloody hell, my somewhat prim and correct young wife was being friendly with a pimp. He must have been Mark, must have been a bleeding pimp. Surely she wasn't so simple-minded not to recognize what was going on around her. Enough. Whether she liked it or not, Samantha and I were getting out of there. "Samantha," I called sufficiently loudly that she couldn't pretend not to hear. "Time we were going, Sam. Come on now, it's time we were off." She looked over at me and the smile drained away from her face, only to be replaced by an agitated look. She didn't even say no. She didn't say anything at all. Samantha just shook her head at me and turned back to her friends, the smile returning. And before long, she was giggling like a little schoolgirl, apparently having forgotten that I was even there. "Play it cool or piss off, man," said the deep voice at my elbow. "I won't warn you again." "Now look here," I started to protest, but he put his huge hand on my chest and pushed me firmly away from the group set, around the table, and back up to the bar. "The lady doesn't seem to want to know you, Buster," he informed me. "Stay there and wait for her if you want, or go home. Go find yourself another date for the night, or better still, try one of our ladies." Without waiting for me to say anything, he beckoned one of the women over, and she responded immediately, trotting over on her high heels to stand right beside me. "This is Cindy," he told me. "It'll cost you, but she'll look after you tonight. Just piss off with her and forget about the little lady over there. Her and Mark have a lot of catching up to do. Sorry if your date didn't work out as you expected tonight, but that's life." He backed off and went back to the table, leaving me speechless with rage. "Don't push your luck, handsome," the prostitute Cindy advised me. "The pair of them are not to be messed with. Just let her go. She's pretty enough, but better to find yourself another girl for the night." I looked at her in disbelief. "She's not my girlfriend. She's my bloody wife," I found myself hissing at her. "Oh," the girl Cindy exclaimed, her face clouding over. "Oh, that's bad. That's really bad." I wanted to make my move back over to the table, but this time it was Cindy who blocked my move. "Hang on, handsome," she said to me. "You really don't want to do that." "What the am I supposed to do then, for Christ's sake?" I demanded in frustration. "Let me go and have a word with her for you," she offered. "You're not kidding me, are you? She really is your wife." The look on my face alone was enough to convince her, and holding up the palm of her hand towards me to make sure I didn't follow her, she slowly threaded her way through to the table where Samantha and the others were sitting. I watched as she bent down and whispered something in Mark's ear, and then Samantha looked up in my direction for the first time since she'd entered the pub, her eyes meeting mine. It was almost a look of surprise as she looked over at me as if she'd really and truly just remembered I was there. She looked sheepishly away and then whispered something back to Cindy. "She said she'd come over and see you in a minute," Cindy informed me when she got back over to me. "In a minute? In a bloody minute?" I shouted at her. "I want her here now." "Don't push your luck, mister," was all she said back. And then she wandered off to try her luck with another John further down the bar. I stood there fuming, unable to take my eyes off Samantha for a minute, unable not to notice that Mark's arm had slid across her shoulders, the tips of his fingers brushing casually against one of her breasts. At least she looked over at me a few times with a watery smile for my benefit. I started counting the minutes, wondering at which point I would explode, but after 5 minutes she stood up and excused herself, but didn't come straight over to me. Instead, Samantha made her way over to the toilets and disappeared through the door. I didn't know whether she wanted me to follow her or not. I didn't know what the hell to do, but before I could make my mind up, she came out again, and with a glance over towards Mark's group, made her way over to me. "What the hell are you playing at, Samantha?" I demanded angrily. "Let's go and go now." I wanted to grab her arm, but she pushed me off, backing away. "Don't cause a scene, Tom," she spat out at me. "You can go if you want, but I'm staying here for a while." "What? You heard me, Tom, Samantha told me firmly. I'm staying here for a while to chat to my old friends. You can go and come back later for me or stay here and wait. I looked at her, unable to believe my ears. The woman who had told me how much she loved me several times earlier that day was telling me to piss off. Better if you just go home, Tom, she continued when I failed to respond. I'll get a taxi back later. We'll talk about this then. I'm not bloody well leaving you here, Tom, I cried. I very nearly did cry, in fact. Then just stay and watch then, Tom, if you must, she answered resignedly. You might not like what you see, but for your own sake, don't interfere. I tried once more to persuade her to leave with me, but she would have none of it. Better if you left now, Tom, she suggested. I'll see you later. Don't worry, sweetheart. Everything will be okay afterwards. I love you, and will make it up to you, I promise. Just give me this one evening, and everything will be like before. Samantha made a move away, but I grabbed her arm and pulled her back, astounded at her outrageous behavior. I didn't even see him coming. Before I knew it, I was flat back up against the bar as the big black guy knocked my arm away from my wife and me with it. I'm no wimp, so I took a swing at him, but I might as well have tried to knock down a brick wall. He shoved me further along the bar and then pushed me to the ground. I warned you, you stupid little bastard, he reminded me, a nasty grin on his face. Then he picked me up as if I was a featherweight and propelled me towards the door. Don't hurt him, Ted, cried out Samantha. He hasn't done any real harm. I don't really know whether her pleas had any effect on the outcome, but at least I guess she had tried. The next thing I knew, I was outside and doubling up as he hit me in the stomach and then reeling backward as he punched me in the chest. It felt as if I'd been hit by a train, and I fell flat on my back and waited for the beating to continue. It didn't come. I lay there for a good while, wondering how the hell I had gotten there. I had a pain in my chest from where he had hit me and was fighting for my breath due to the blow to my middle. 2 punches, just 2 casual punches, and I had been reduced to a wreck, aching all over and still unable to stand up. Another 10 minutes, and I was able to pull myself up to my feet, shaking off the dust and grime from my clothes. How could an evening that had started so wonderfully have descended that far? Again, it was the same thing. I just didn't know what the hell to do. I'm no softy, but how could I stand up to a great hulk like that? He'd murder me. I'd never felt so damn humiliated and hopeless in my entire life. Some bloody special hero I was. It wasn't as if I even knew anyone in Dallas. I didn't. So much as have a friend to call to help me. I stood there and watched the slow stream of clients going in and out of the pub, more than a few of the guys going in and coming out later with one of the women on their arm. The pub was a bloody brothel. My wife of 8 years, who only that morning I had discussed having children with, was in an effing brothel. She'd taken me there and must have known. I fought back the tears and knew what I had to do. I couldn't walk away and leave her there like that. I didn't know what I was going to do with her, but I couldn't walk off and abandon her. If she didn't come home with me this time, then potentially our wonderful, perfect marriage was over. I guess more than an hour had passed before I managed to get myself ready to go back inside the pub. I didn't know what to expect. I certainly never expected what confronted me. I guess maybe you might describe it as an impromptu striptease act. It was my wife and another girl. My wife had the last shred of clothes on her, and that was about to come off. A large group of guys surrounded the pair of them, grinning and laughing as Samantha's last clothes came off. No, I couldn't stand it. I charged forward, pushing my way through the other men and grabbed at Samantha, who looked around at me, a startled look on her face. "Oh no, Tom. Oh, for Christ's sake, no," was all she managed to get out. I fared no better than the last time, and the lights started to go out for me as someone smashed me hard in the face. The last thing I remember seeing was Mark clutching my wife in his arms. I think she had a look of horror on her face as she watched me being dragged out of the pub. They weren't so easy on me the second time, and it was several hours later that I fully came to in the middle of a car park some distance from the pub. I hurt all over, but I guess they were experts, and though I was in pain, nothing seemed to be broken. It took me an hour to find my way back to our car, and another before I managed to start it and drive back to our new rented flat. I fell asleep on the sofa, not knowing, and by then beyond caring at what time Samantha would be home. The following morning I woke up feeling worse than death. I had a very long, very hot shower, and at last my body started to feel like it belonged to me again. I got slowly dressed, trying not to think of the previous evening, but I just couldn't stop. I didn't know if the pain in my body was as bad as the pain in my brain. Was my marriage over? I had no idea, but it seemed pretty likely. For the life of me, I couldn't understand what had happened. How could my loving wife, Samantha, have acted like that? I'd known her all those years, but quite obviously not as well as I thought. 11:00 in the morning, and where the hell was she? I was buggered if I was going to chase back over there to find her. Another hour passed, and still no news. I paced around the room, not knowing what to do. I was buggered if I was going back to look for her. Then the phone rang. It had only been connected the day before, and unless it was a double-glazing salesman on a cold call, then the only person other than myself who had the number was my darling wife. "Hello," I answered after picking it up. "Hi, honey," she replied quietly. "Are you okay?" "What do you think, Samantha?" I asked her. "Oh, Tom, I'm so sorry for last night. I should have known not to go back to that bloody damn pub." "Where are you now?" I demanded. "Still at the pub. I'm ready to leave now, Tom. Do you want to come and pick me up, or should I get a taxi?" I ignored her question. "So who did you sleep with last night, my darling wife?" I asked sardonically, but she didn't answer. She didn't really have to, did she? Or did the whole pub get to screw you, Samantha? Is that what happened? "No," Samantha claimed urgently. "No, don't be stupid, Tom." The only one was she left the sentence unfinished, it suddenly dawning on her what she was about to say. Neither of us said anything for several minutes, though I could hear her sobbing on the other end of the line. "Please, Tom, please understand why I did what I did. Please let me come home to you and let things be as they were. I can explain everything if you'll just let me. Just give me a chance." I desperately wanted to tell her to piss off, but this had to be sorted out one way or the other. "Make your own damn way home," I told her, "or get one of your boyfriends to drive you back." "Oh, thank you, Tom," Samantha whimpered. "I'll be back in half an hour at the most. It will all be okay. You'll see, everything will be okay." I slammed the phone down before she had time to say anything else. Damn it, bugger it, I loved her, but I hated her. What the hell was I going to say to her when she got back? Was I going to tell her to pack her bags, or would I take her in my arms? As it turned out, I didn't have to make that decision. Half an hour passed, then the full hour. The afternoon turned into evening, and still no sign of my errant wife. By 8:00 p.m., it was obvious she wasn't actually going to come home. Not that night anyway, and for me, that meant possibly not any night in the future. As each hour had passed, I had gotten angrier and angrier, not shouting and screaming angry, but with cold, calculating fury that consumed me. I put a few things in the car and drove very carefully back to the city center, hoping that I could find the pub again that Samantha had taken me to the night before. After several mistakes, I eventually recognized a large factory, and just down the road, the Rose and Crown pub. Parking the car just around the corner, I got out and walked towards the bar, outwardly confident, but my heart pounding away inside. I had to admit I was nervous, even physically frightened after what they'd done to me the previous night. I hesitated by the front door, not knowing what to expect. I didn't even know for sure if Samantha was still in there. I pushed the door open and went in. It was much as before, full of rough-looking characters and even rougher-looking women. I recognized several faces, and a couple of them looked surprised to see me. If they weren't sure if it was me from the night before, then the black eye and bruises on my face would have given it away. "Haven't you had enough, mate?" asked the barman on spotting me. "Where's my wife, asshole?" I demanded. At least he had the decency to look surprised. "Your wife?" he queried, screwing his face up. "Mark's your wife?" I nodded my confirmation. "Bloody hell," he said. "She told us you were just a date." The barman looked at me with some sympathy, remembering what had happened the night before and possibly even more since I had been thrown out. He knew there was going to be trouble. He didn't know what, but he knew. He cocked his head to one side, indicating the far corner. When I looked over, there she was. Samantha sat on Mark's knee. Neither of them had noticed me enter, and I crossed over to them before they realized I was there. Samantha gasped in surprise and tried unsuccessfully to pull her blouse back over to cover her body. She needn't have bothered, as we'd all seen them before. Mark simply grinned at me, that sort of grin when you know you've got the better of someone. "That was a long half hour, Samantha," I said to her. "Did something hold you up?" Samantha said nothing at first, just stared at me with a shocked look on her face. "Piss off, wimp," spat out Mark. "I'll send her home to you when I'm good and ready." Well, at least it seemed that he knew she was my wife. "Please, Tom," whispered Samantha at last, finding her voice. "He'll definitely be back home later, I promise you. He'll come back, and everything will be just fine." Mark laughed and kissed her, teasing me more than her. "You'll go when I say you can," he spat out, never taking his eyes off me to judge my reaction. "Last chance, Samantha," I said to her, ignoring his sneers. "It's now or never." I'd thought about it a lot, and I think even then, if she'd come with me, chosen me over him, then I would try to work it out. Maybe we could get over what had happened so far. I wasn't sure, but maybe. She looked at me pitifully, indecision written all over her face. Her eyes, her lovely brown eyes, said it all. She knew how much she had hurt me, but instead of doing what she knew she should, she was calculating how much more she could get away with. How much further could she push me and still have me come back for more? "Please, Tom, be reasonable," Samantha whispered eventually, and I knew she had failed me again, and that we were finished for good. "You know how much I wanted to see my old friends again and relive my old student days just one last time. Just hang on a little longer for me while I have my last harmless little fling, and I promise you everything will get back to normal. I really do love you, sweetie, and promise I'll make it up to you." She stared at me imploringly, her eyes begging me to agree, but I said nothing in reply. I had nothing else to say. Samantha went to say something else to me, but Mark had had enough as well. He kissed her hard and threw out even harder, and her words were transformed into nothing. That was it. I had all the information I needed. My wife was coming back home after all, but I'd have to wait till tomorrow or maybe the day after, or the day after that. Fine. That was great, wasn't it? I noticed that the West Indian guy was edging over towards me, so I held up my hands and backed off. No point in getting involved in a one-sided fight with him again. The whole bar had fallen silent, waiting to see what was going to happen, but as far as I was concerned, nothing was going to happen, at least not straight away. "See you all later then," I said quietly. "I'm not still 16, Samantha," I burst out. "I can look after myself now." Even her face fell when she saw how that hit me, her one special thing over all those years, and she was throwing it back in my face. "I'm sorry, Tom," she started. "I really didn't mean that." But I ignored her, taking no notice of her incoherent apology as I backed out through the door. Mark laughed out loud again and slid her blouse right off her, reaching up under her skirt even as I watched to rub my face in my misery. It could have been that caused the tears to roll down her cheeks, but somehow I doubted it. I guess she still loved me in her way, and to see me humiliated like that again could have just been too much. That's what I like to think anyway. As I closed the door behind me, the silence in the pub crashed as everyone started to talk and laugh at the same time. I guess they thought they'd seen the last of me. Me, strolling slowly back to my car. I opened the trunk and took out the stuff that I'd put there before I left the house. Anybody watching me would have thought I was cool and relaxed, whereas actually I was fuming inside, terrified of what I had decided to do, not knowing how it was going to turn out. I had a license for my over-and-under 12-gauge Browning shotgun. I'd been going to clay pigeon shooting for a couple of years by then, and though I wasn't very good at it, I figured I didn't have to be for what I had planned. I selected a handful of cartridges, making sure they were all small caliber, as I didn't want to end up in prison on a murder charge. I broke the gun and pushed 2 rounds in, putting the rest in my jacket pocket. A few moments later, and I was back outside the pub and staring at the 2 big engraved windows. This will wake them up, I thought as my heart thundered away inside my jacket. This wasn't me. It just wasn't me. But what else was I to do? There was no mileage in going back in and arguing with her, as she wouldn't agree, and I'd probably get another beating. What would I do if I simply went home? Wait for her to come back to me and discuss how we might get over what she had done, how she had humiliated me? No bloody way. It had gone beyond that by now, and I wasn't taking any more from any of them. Taking aim at the first window, I squeezed the trigger just like I'd been taught. My arm was trembling, shaking even, and the barrel of the shotgun was swaying around uncertainly in a large circle as I fought to control my nerves. It didn't matter really, as I was no more than 15 feet from the window. I increased the pressure on the trigger and resisted the urge to close my eyes. There was a loud bang, and an instant later, the whole window disintegrated in a twirling mass of broken glass. I took aim at the second window with renewed confidence, fired off the second barrel, and the other window followed suit. The report from the gun echoed around the surrounding buildings far louder than it had ever before sounded when I had shot previously out in an open field, and mingled with the tinkling of fallen glass. I calmly took 2 more cartridges from my pocket and loaded them into the gun. Then I waited to see what would happen. I really had no idea how they would respond and almost hoped that they wouldn't. But I was ready and prepared to show them that they'd made a big mistake if they thought I was a wimp, and would take what they had done to me lying down. The doors flew open, and several guys poured out. They stopped dead when they saw me standing there with the gun. Nobody moved. Then Mark came charging out, closely followed by his big black henchman. "Stupid effing bastard," he screamed at me and charged me, maybe thinking I'd not thought to reload, maybe not thinking at all. I took careful aim somewhere around his knees, as I didn't want to risk actually killing him and put pressure on the trigger. I was as cool as a cucumber, even having time to note that my arms no longer trembled and that the gun was pointing exactly where I was aiming it. Time seemed to slow down. I had all the time in the world. I quite clearly saw the look on his face change from rage to terror as he realized that he had made a serious error in judgment. Maybe I had the same grin on my face that he did just a few moments before, the one when you know you've really got the better of someone. Bang! He went down screaming, even surprising me with the mess it made of his legs. Fair play to the black guy, he didn't even hesitate. Great courage or no brains, I'm not sure, but he didn't stop. Not, that is, until the second barrel load ripped into his legs and put him down as well. The 2 of them lay on the ground, Mark screaming and the black guy groaning aloud. I didn't even bother to reload this time. My emotions were too shot, but fortunately the rest of the crowd suddenly melted away. Everything went calm relatively, that is, as 2 injured guys can make a lot of noise. It was a short walk back to the car, though my legs were so wobbly I thought I might fall over. The shotgun went back in the trunk, and I gingerly started the motor and made my way home. I drove slowly and very carefully indeed. I thought of going into the pub to frighten the hell out of Samantha, but I couldn't. I didn't trust myself, and to be honest, it had terrified me doing what I'd just done. But I'd done it, though. I'd bloody well done it, just as I'd promised myself I would. But enough was enough. Strangely, I slept well that night and woke up quite fresh, black eye and bruised face still, but otherwise quite fresh. I wondered who would turn up first, Samantha or the police, to arrest me. I hadn't even put the shotgun away, and it was still in the trunk of my car. As it turned out, Samantha couldn't turn up. About 10:00, I got a phone call asking me if I was the husband of Samantha Jennings. "Yes, I am," I replied, wondering what it was about. It was the police. I had been fully expecting them to call around to arrest me that morning, not ring me about Samantha. "I'm sorry, sir, but we've got her under arrest at the station. Could you come along and collect her, please?" "Under arrest?" I queried, my surprise obviously genuine. "What for goodness' sake?" "Prostitution, sir," he answered. "She was taken in last night with a group of other working girls after a shooting on the edge of town." "Oh no, that explains it," I answered. "I wondered what the hell she had been getting up to lately, coming home at all hours." "I understand, sir," the policeman answered somberly. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way. You'd be surprised how often this happens. I think my comments sealed her fate. It turned out that they thought they'd made a mistake with her being a bit more upper class than the other women. Then, when I refused to come and get her, that must have made it sound worse. She was prosecuted and found guilty, lost her new job, and would have had great trouble finding another. Young female graduates with a conviction for prostitution are not exactly widely sought after by most firms. The police didn't even so much as ask me whether I owned a shotgun. Mine was registered to me quite openly back in Austin, where we had just moved from, but they never even checked. I wasn't a suspect in any way, so why would they? But why did nobody from the pub split on me? Well, I had no idea at all. Samantha tried to contact me time and time again. I never met up with her again, but I did eventually accept one of her calls after she got more and more desperate. She told me she still loved me and all the usual rubbish. I think she really did as well and was obviously broken-hearted that I wouldn't entertain taking her back. I refused to even discuss it, and she acted a little frightened of me after I had dealt with our problem as firmly as I had. Samantha was at least honest with me when I questioned her about Mark and her job at the pub when she had been a student. "How the hell do you go from working behind the bar to what happened the other night?" I demanded. "I said I worked at the pub when I was a student," Samantha told me. "I never said I worked behind the bar." Oh, bloody hell. I can't describe how I felt when I realized the implications of those few words. She'd worked for that bloody Mark as one of his girls. Only then did it all make sense, the hold he had over her. He'd married an ex-prostitute and would never have known it if we hadn't gone back there. Was that a good thing or a bad thing? Hard to say, really. You'll have to judge for yourselves. It was her that warned me that Mark would come looking for me to sort me out himself, once he was back on his feet, that is. Maybe that's why nobody from the pub told the police about me, as people like that sort their own problems out. He'd never find me, of course. I backed out of the job in Dallas, which they understood after the news of my wife got out. But I took the one in the Middle East where they were happy to have me on a bachelor posting, as they're cheaper than a married couple. That's about where we came in, I suppose. I got away with it. To my surprise, I actually got away with it, and they put it all down to a gangland shooting. I suppose you might be wondering what then happened to me. Okay, well, that's natural. As you might imagine, I gave up clay pigeon shooting and sold my shotgun, then took up golf instead. Got quite good at it as well, and eventually got my handicap down to 6. I went out with quite a few different women, but only discovered just how good my wife Samantha had really been in bed. Well, she would have been, wouldn't she, as she had worked at it, as it were, in both senses of the word. Then I met up with Angie, a lovely American woman whom I met in Dubai. Life was fine after that, really fine. I never inquired too deeply quite where she had gained her experience, but I really think she was just a gifted amateur. I hoped so anyway. We have never married. She didn't want to, and strictly speaking, I was still married, and I still haven't bothered to get divorced. I came back to the UK occasionally, but always steered clear of Dallas till at last I couldn't resist it. One Thursday in June found me slowly driving past the Rose and Crown, hoping that nobody would recognize me after all that time. The fine decorated windows had been replaced by some modern double-glazed units. Pity, really, I'd rather liked them. I sat there in my car for a while, and at last, to my surprise, a guy in a wheelchair turned up. He was a big chap and tough-looking, but fatter than I'd remembered Mark. But of course, I'd only seen him a few short times, and that had been 5 or 6 years previously. What clinched it was the big colored man pushing him, the one with the really bad limp. That could only have been Ted. Then several women poured out of the pub to see Mark, report to him, maybe that being easier than getting him up the 3 steep steps into the bar. They all looked rough, just like the last time I'd been there, except one of them, that is. One of them looked a little bit different, pretty, slender, sexy, long legs. Well, yes, it could have been her, though she looked much older. She still kept her hair short and was still quite smartly dressed. Her eyes had a worn-out look about them, though, and the smile that I had once loved was nowhere to be seen. She didn't look very happy at all, but I didn't hang around to make sure. She was, as she'd said, not 16 anymore, and could look after herself. Strange how things turn out, isn't it? If only that bloody restaurant hadn't redecorated their dining room, then maybe she would be at home right now with our children, the ones we'd never now have. I wouldn't have been any the wiser, and maybe we would have lived happily ever after. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts and thanks for watching. What would you have done in Tom's shoes? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories. See you next time.